Start streaming. Okay, I'll check that it's running first. So there's a little bit of a delay on it. So I'll just say like, hi, you're with Scott. I'm Ganjikidd. I'm Grave Kipper. It's midnight. It's always midnight. This is your right ear. This is your left ear. And that should lead me into live streaming. It says it's live, but I can't see the picture. And now I can see the picture. Okay, I'll check that it's running and first. I can hear me. So you do some talking, Steve, and I'll listen. I'll hear you.
Okay, Scott, apparently we're live, and I'm wondering if it is actually coming through your ears, or you're just hearing me through Discord.
Okay, a little bit of a delay on the actual stream picture. And in just 2 seconds, obviously the same delay as I just went through. Check that it's running. This bit's to make me look like really foolish as we get started. The first 30 seconds.
Okay, Scott, apparently we're live, and I'm wondering if...
We're all good. We're all good in the hood. So we're live on YouTube. I can hear it. You can be heard. We can all be heard. I'll do the introduction again.
I'll send out the big tweet.
This is Thus, a podcast about people, how they think, feel, and behave. Today we're continuing to guzzle at the wellspring of content that is DarksydePhil. We're going to talk media and content, the audience and their motivations. Questions like, why do people watch DarksydePhil? What does Phil think of the people who watch him? What's a community? And what's Phil doing to sustain or starve his? Finally, we're going to look at the hard questions like Phil might have a responsibility to his audience, and does he, and what is that? And we're going to try and offer some advice for anyone out there trying to foster good relationships with their audience or their favourite streamers like us. So we'll get started with why do people watch Phil. This is Steve of the Dead. His channel's in this picture above my head here. Steve's... do you want to introduce yourself again, Steve? Forensic psychologist that you are.
I'm the forensic psychologist that does a lot of fairly long videos about DarksydePhil, and I am always happy to find another excuse to talk anything psychology, so I'm looking forward to chatting more with you.
Cool. If anyone has any problems with the sound levels, tell us in chat, because I'm not listening to my own headphones, my own voice in the headphones. So tell us in chat and we'll try and monitor chat as we go. So first of all, we want to ask, why do people watch DarksydePhil? But there are some different groups of people that watch DarksydePhil. So I think we should break them up into categories. And I think we should start with the hardest group to understand first, right? Which is the real supporters, the long-term real supporters. How and why would a person get into Phil's circle of trust? And I've got some ideas about it. I'll let Steve kick off and talk, and then I'll ask some other questions. So you tell me what you think, Steve. How do people become a real fan of DarksydePhil?
Oh, it's a very difficult one, that, because again, with the real fans, you have to break them down into further subcategories, and you have to have like the legacy fans who have actually been there for long enough, you know, over the last, say, I think 5 years is a good cut-off point. Around about the time he moved to Twitch and became a streamer full-time seems to be a good sort of point to split them up, because then at that point you've got people who were watching him back in the day on YouTube, and when he was uploading like 30 or 40 videos a day, spamming people's inbox. So you've got them, and then you've got the new people who come over and just somehow sort of bypass all the detractor stuff and all the negative stuff and end up actually watching him for legitimate entertainment reasons. So
we've got an older group that, like, because Phil's been going for a long time, yeah. So like we're saying, like the original OGs of if you need what an OG is, if anyone is listening wants to know what an OG is. So we've got the original people who were with him for a long time and who stayed with him, and then we've got like another like more nouveau group of people who have discovered him more recently, we'll say. So let's go for the old G's first. Like, how do you think that someone has managed to watch his content all these years and not be offended or put off or what have you? How has this happened?
That must be a very restricted YouTube diet. I guess art is ultimately subjective. So I guess if you can find some entertainment for DarksydePhil and the content that he provides, then you're going to end up watching him. But I don't know. It just seems entertainment beyond me.
I've got an idea in my mind that I think people like people who they are like. Does that make sense? Like, if you identify with someone, then you might sort of think, oh, I like them. And like, whilst we generally, you know, we have common ground, like we like the same sort of music and stuff and different things like that. Maybe there are some people out there, I've got to be trying careful what I say, but maybe there's some people out there who are just right-wing assholes who like like they are racists, and they watch the media and they think, oh, you can't even call someone a fucking rude name on telly these days without being called a racist. And so they look at people like DarksydePhil and also Alex Jones, who was recently in the media, you know, and they think they're being silenced, they're being shut down. Like people are trying to silence Phil, and I'm on his side because I also think that we should be able to punch down on people or what have you. You know,
there is a huge element to that. I was hoping that we'd be getting to it later at some point because it's probably going to come up. But yeah, we do get a lot of our social identity from the groups we're in, and so if you do find a group or a person that you find some affinity with, you are going to gravitate towards them and you are going to become a fan of theirs. And there probably will be people who do see Phil as the downtrodden everyman, the one who's constantly being screwed over by Twitch and by trolls and by advertisers. And there are people who will buy into it, you know, because obviously lacking the sort of the background knowledge that we have and all the experience that we have of Phil, you're not going to know who he is. So when you do take him at face value and see that, oh, he is just this, like, he's just a guy who just wants to play games and chill, and, you know, he's just constantly being harassed by this horrible group of people online, and you know it's their fault he's in this poor position, you'll feel sorry for him, you'll stick around for him, you might even chuck him a couple of quid. That's a huge part of that. It's a huge sort of like I see part of myself in you, as it were. And or I see something of, we have something in common, you and I. It's like I've had people try to hold me down as well. I've had people bully me online.
Do you think it could be people who are bullied maybe, or in some ways Phil's a funny character because I see him as a bit of a bully and also as someone who may have been victim of bullying. So do you think it's people that are in that loop in some way as well?
I would bet so. I would bet a significant chunk of my pension on that, yeah. Because, well, two things. First of all, often what you'll see when somebody who's been bullied have like a position of social power over somebody else, they will often respond in kind, whether that's because of like the unique psychopathology of that individual or because they see like that's how it was done to me, so that must be how it's done. It is neither here nor there. But also it attracts and gives you some sort of group sensation. And as I'm sure we're about to get into, a lot of Phil's chat are not what you would call normal people. And I mean that in terms of like psychologically.
Right.
I don't mean normal. I mean normal in the psychological concept of neurotypical, basically the greater population. You know, you're every man. You're man on the Clapham omnibus. Just a regular person. So his audience is a very unique mixture of people who are one way or another sort of social outcasts, social pariahs. They don't fit in at school for either physical or mental reasons, and so they're often rejected from other groups, and as such you're searching for any sort of longing and belonging. And when you're in another stream chat where there's like 6,000 or 60,000 people all talking, it can be hard to feel like I can form a connection with this streamer, I can form a connection with this community, I can become part of it. But in Phil's chat, where he's constantly stopping to talk to the 20 or so active chatters on a good day, it's more likely, if you're coming from a place of being ostracized from many social groups, that you'll fall into this trap and say, oh, here's somebody who not only knows what I'm going through, but is willing to talk to me. He will stop the stream and answer my question. So you may fall in that way as well. That's like one of the more subtle ways that Phil sort of maintains an audience, preys upon the people that don't have that much external elsewhere. Because I mean, if you've got better social skills, or you've got like a better and more fulfilling social group elsewhere, you're not going to stick around with DarksydePhil. You're going to be able to compare the two and think, hang on a minute, this guy's an asshole, and go and hang out with your other mate.
It does occur to me as well when you're saying this that we've got like DarksydePhil's on so consistently. So in terms of like he's always there. I was going to ask a bit later about detractors and other people's videos and stuff like that, but maybe the people who followed Phil haven't even got the time to watch all this other content. Like I say, if you're living a life, you've got a job, you know, you're watching some YouTube in the evening or in the daytime or whatever, and you're following Phil, like that might fill up that time. And so it becomes like a regular, you know, routine. He's always there, you're always there. Like one thing Phil does, you can't really critique him on it, is he's consistent. You know, he sets a schedule and he's there pretty much every day, all the time. So there's something in that, I guess. Yeah,
for better or worse, he is consistent, and he's also quite prolific in terms of the volume of content he's put out. So for as little gameplay as there may actually be, he is still putting out like 4 or 5 hours of content a day. And that's a lot to consume in your spare time. If you're doing something like school or work for 8 hours a day, you've also got the hour or two beforehand that it takes you to get dressed, get there. and then like an equivalent portion to get back home and have something to eat or finish off whatever else you need to do. And then there's just like a little period of a couple of hours before you start going to bed or, you know, wrapping up your evening. And if you're going to catch up with Phil because you're at work while he's streaming, for example, that's that chunk there taken up with Phil's content and no one else. So it's going to take up a bit of your time at least.
Let's move on to the next group that I've got in my notes that I've outlined. I think there's a new recycled group, and I think there's two ways to look at this as well, which is YouTube's always suggesting your videos to a new audience. There's always some new people being born and, you know, growing up and discovering content on YouTube. But I think Phil's got, well, you know, we'll talk about them in a minute, but I think Phil's got another special group where people, like we said, might have watched him like 14 years ago for whatever reason and have just like noticed again all these years later that there he is, he's in a bit of a tight spot, he's not doing well, they've now grown up and got a job and they can throw him a few bucks, and there's like this guilt donation that comes kind of regularly. I used to watch you, here's 40 bucks sort of thing, and it's like a recycling of an audience in those ways. What do you think about those? Do you think
we should probably like state right now that we are taking these at face value and assuming they're legitimate groups and not just people fucking with him.
Right, yeah.
So like say, you know, yeah, I've been a fan since you played Fallout 3 or whatever. But assuming that they're legit, that for whatever reason, if you watch Phil, if you watch the first few years of Phil, and then you had a chunk of your time where you weren't watching him for whatever reason, and then you suddenly discover him again, there's a lot you missed in those years. You know, a lot will have gone on that shifted Phil's appearance and his personality from when he was like the guy who got drunk and uploaded videos and played like with Rambo and all that. You've got like a lot of catching up to do. So yeah, you can sort of like see somebody ignorant of all that, seeing, oh my god, DarksydePhil's still streaming. Wow. Oh man, I used to love his videos. I'll go and see what he's doing. Oh, he needs money. Well, you know, he did give me a lot. Yeah, you know what? Yeah, okay, fine. He gave me a lot of laughs when I was younger, so, you know, yeah, I'll give a couple of quid. So, yeah, there's that. There's also people who might have a bit of remorse. They might, like, have sort of, like, gone, I did used to take the piss back in the day, but, you know, I feel a bit bad about it now.
Yeah.
So it is, like, a little something to make up for it. And again, that's assuming that they're legitimate, but I don't doubt at least one or two people will have felt a bit bad about how they might have been towards Phil. It's bound to happen just by the sheer number of people that have like been pushed away by Phil. So, but I would assume, because you know, I'm cynical and I know how these these groups have been and how much of a mess his unique audience has been, that few of them are legitimate and most of them are probably going to be soccer accounts. But assuming that some of them are legit, that might be where it comes from.
And then what about, do you think, new day, like in terms of what Phil does, like we talked last episode about him like performing a grift, those sort of people think there's one born every minute and there's always a new idiot. So do you think YouTube is serving him sort of fresh people that have never discovered him before? And, you know, there's this idea of recycling an audience where old people leave, new people come in, you've always got people. Like, do you think that happens?
Probably through the churning mill of YouTube, yeah. But I don't think it's as common as we might think. Because Phil's sort of like position in the algorithm is quite low. Phil's not like handling the algorithm well. So I feel like the potential for that is there. But if Phil would stop making his streams private, or if he would, you know, sort of like encourage more activity on his, like if he wouldn't moderate content, because good content or bad comments, good comments or bad comments, regardless of whether you're leaving them on, YouTube's seen them as comments. YouTube's not going, oh, that's a detractor, that's legitimate. YouTube's just going, wow, look at all these comments on this video. So if he stopped moderating his comment, his channel would seem more active and it'd be pushed further up in the results. But I think this is an area where the potential is there, but Phil's harming himself because of, you know, his obstinate ego and his pride and his insecurities, his music, all that stuff.
So then let's get on to the the third group of well, I don't know what to say. This I've titled it the downright disturbing. We've got the long term, the new. We've been through those, and we've got people who are so I want to say individual, but I also want to say unique, of course. But so individual that they form their own category. Do you want to go through a few of these? Should we start with Derek? He seems like the most.
It's hard to say because he says Derish, but there's
Derish.
the
Yeah.
CH sound and it's Derek, it's
Yeah, Derish. Sorry. Yeah. Sorry,
I
Derish. And
think
Derish, if you are watching, I'm not being mean to you. I find you quite an interesting person, and the stuff you say in chat is really interesting. So we're going to discuss you. So that's how it is. I, you know, how do you think Phil's cult? Because we're talking about Phil in the audience, and we've got this category of people who, if it was in my chat, I'd have to say something sometimes, but Phil seems to cultivate it. So, why do you think Phil feels the way he feels? How do you think he feels the way he feels about Derish, and how do you think Derish feels about Phil?
it's like very hot button issue in the detractor community, isn't it? I don't know about Phil. I really don't know where it's coming from because it's so unlike Phil to show sort of like any sort of preference or like any sort of like empathy or sign of concern or like even just to tolerate what he tolerates from Derek from anybody else. Mostly people have to pay to get this, to get to like Phil's notification, to get into his notice. But Derek's just there for I don't know. So with him specifically, what Phil gets out of it is still up for debate. What Derek gets out of it is likely going to be a community with other people who he may lack the social skills necessary to see when people are like taking the piss and trolling him and being sarcastic, and when people are being legitimate and genuine. He may lack those skills, but either way, he sees this as a community that he is part of. They know him. He knows some of the people that are there. He's part of that community. And with Phil, because he has such repeated interactions with Phil, probably maybe being a brother sort of, like a stepbrother, an older sort of, not like a paternal figure, but an older male figure regardless. That sort of,
so do you think maybe
like older cousin, older brother sort of
because
position?
For anyone that doesn't know, and everyone that fucking does know, so I don't know what I'm saying this, but Derish will sort of spam the chat with factual messages, maybe copy pasted from Google and some places like that, and he also has a penchant for dirty sex porn sites. This is just the facts, and he has a special place in the chat because anyone else would get leaned in, banned, like put aside. But Derek is allowed to sort of continue unmolested and is encouraged and protected by Phil, so to speak. Yeah. My question I was going to say is, like, do you think he's trying to impress Phil?
There is that element to it, isn't there? I think Derek wants to be seen as a good chatter, a sterling member of this community, and that's why he tries to keep it going. He tries to keep chatting constantly. He tries to bring things up, regardless of like how relevant or even if regardless of how pointless they are. He will still bring something up. So he just seems like the one to try to keep it going. And Phil, I think, likes that because it's genuine. And I think that's the issue. Phil can never really be 100% unless you've given him enough money. And even then, there's still like the suspicion and the paranoia that you're one day going to bail on him, because every other relationship he's had has. So he's probably going to be paranoid of everyone around him. But Derek feels genuine. Derek is the one who genuinely seems to like being there. And I think Phil really likes that somebody is genuine in his community. There's somebody who still wants to come and watch and chat and chill. And,
do you remember a while ago, I'm not going to get it up on the video, but do you remember a while ago there was a girl on the internet who sang boom, 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 let me hear you say whale, whale. And then Derek has recently done some videos on Twitch where he's singing along to songs, and it's very much in that vein, except a bit more scary. So what you were saying about Phil, I'm surprised if Phil hasn't seen Derek and his content and been a bit set aback by it. So there is a question that goes around that maybe there's some motivation for Phil to keep Derek around that's not overt, that maybe he's maybe someone's relation or friend, or there's some personal relationship in the background that we don't know. Did you think there's validity to those sort of ideas?
I don't know about being specifically related. We know that he doesn't follow him on Twitter, but I think that some of the detractor rumor is that Phil was Derek donated money to Phil using his parents' credit card, and his parents found out about that, and What exactly that was, nobody really knows, but it's suspected that that's a lot of the reason why Phil is okay with Derish. He's either been threatened to, look, you treat our son well, or, and we will be watching to check, or we're coming for you. Or it's a case of, I'm hoping he's going to get control of his own finances one day, and he'll reward him. Because Derish would, if Derish had money, he would be giving it to Phil. So I think Phil might be holding on to that.
Derish is Phil's nest egg. He's preparing him for the future. He's like fertilizing the ground.
Derish is Phil's pension. Yeah, that's what it is.
He's got his hopes. That's a weird way to look at it, isn't it? Pinning your hopes on some reprobate in chat that they might make good in their life, and then they give the money to you instead of just doing your own life. Can I just ask
easy though, isn't it, if you're lazy?
Can I just ask people in our chat, is the sound all right this week? Are we both balanced? Are you having a good time listening to us? Do you want me to turn anyone up or down? Are you happy with that? You tell me. I'll carry on talking to Steve. And if you say anything that comes, like, I'm looking at your chat and it's on the screen. You've got the good grace of being recorded forever on the thing. So, but I will. I don't tend to chat as much with chat. I tend to chat with Steve, but I will pick out some bits and pieces if you want us to. I hope everything's good with that. Let's move on to another. Unless you've finished on Derish, is there anything else you want to say about Derish?
I think we should move on from Derish because that way. But there are other.
There are others.
There are other uniques because to judge Phil's chat by Derish alone is.
Give us another. There's a couple of others.
It's to do Phil's chat a disservice. Yeah, there are a couple of others.
We're going to get through. We've got a big list. There's a couple of others that stand out to me: Only Iced Coffee and Snow Carl. Do you want to start with Only Iced Coffee?
Yeah, those were like my two big ones as well. Only Iced Coffee is somebody who's paid fortune to be a mod, and from what I can remember I might be wrong about this. I think he left. But there's some rumor that he was actually kicked out because nobody liked him, at all. But either way, he's not a mod anymore, but he still has a huge chunk of sway in Phil's chat to the point where he can threaten other people in that chat with doxing and Phil won't do anything about it.
Right, so again, it's another one you can move around the rules, which we'll come to later about the rules. But Only Iced Coffee, to put someone as a mod is a huge. It's not just a privilege for Phil. It's allowing them, into they can fuck with him in a harsh way with that privilege. So it's allowing them something special for Phil, isn't it? I wouldn't expect that of any. No, I think that's a huge thing. Yeah,
it's a massive piece of trust for Phil because he's letting you into. Not necessarily his inner circle, but he's letting you get a step closer. You're above the average chatter. You're above somebody who, like Snowcarl, might give $1.50. If you're a mod, you're automatically above someone who's given Phil hundreds over this year. So it's a risk for Phil, and I think keeping it at arm's length does him best because you're not likely to get anything really juicy, but you could still do some damage to him.
Oh, you could ban everyone in chat.
Discords and things. Yeah, some people have. I'm sure there's been at least one occasion where a mod has gone rogue and done stupid shit in his chat, modding a bunch of people and just gone wild. But yeah, OIC holds this odd position in Phil's chat where he's simultaneously sort of acknowledged and despised at the same time. It is a very unusual case, I see. Derish is a reprobate and a very potentially dangerous person. Snowcarl is somebody who I don't know how Snowcarl gets away with murder. I just know that he's willing to come back and apologise so much. So Snowcarl, I sort of feel a bit of affinity for.
Is it you? Are you Snowcarl?
No, no, I'm not. I'm not Swedish. I'd probably be into death metal if I was Swedish. No, Snowcarl, because while I was editing, it was the first one where I was editing a bit and Snowcarl had it was during the Snowcarl saga where everybody was putting Carl at the end of their names and DSP went mental at it and Snowcarl was like, I'm okay with this, Phil, it's fine. And Phil was like, no, you're not okay with this, I'm not okay with this is ridiculous, I have to stop, and you're insulting my chat members, and Snowcarl's like, I'm not insulted, it's fine. But eventually Snowcarl caved and said, yeah, actually you're right, Phil, it's unreasonable in your chat, it's derailing and everything. And so it struck me as you are a victim of abuse here, mate. You are being abused by this man. So I sort of feel every time Snowcarl goes back, I'm like, oh mate, why? But there's lots we could be all right. You could look at people like Timbo Slice, who's gone through a third bankruptcy. to keep giving money to Phil. There's Planet Jeff, whose wife died, and Phil gets his inheritance, her life insurance, sorry, because he just gives him thousands. There's Jax Raxer, who seems to pay for Street Fighter and nothing else. There's 1 Minute Man who's done like a Houdini act and just sort of like tips from the shadows. So it's so odd that you have this mix of random. But again, that's the unifying thing, that they're all people who are would be rejected from other social groups for various reasons, but ultimately, the main point being, you're not conforming with our norms. Your behavior is something we disagree with and disapprove of, so we're going to excommunicate you. And as a result of that, they've found their way over to Phil, where Phil's like, if you got a credit card, I'll let you in.
It occurs to me that we were talking about bullying earlier, and from my memories, there was always like a couple of kids that would hang around with the bully, that would be their friends, but they would be bullied by the bully and have to hand over their pocket money as well. But because they were not, because they were in that slightly inner circle, they weren't being beaten up, so to speak, and they would go around with the bully. Do you know what I mean? Like sort of weaker people who would be exploited by the bully.
They remind me of Remora, because you know how sharks sometimes have those little fish swimming underneath,
right?
That like pick off the parasites and eat like the leftovers. And that they get the protection of being under the shark, and therefore they're unlikely to be attacked by other sea creatures. But as a result, they only feed on scraps and parasites. But it still works. It's a thing that benefits them because they get that sense of safety and that sense of belonging and community, and Phil gets the money. So it sort of works for both.
We've just spoke for a good 20 minutes about 3 people who regularly visit Phil's streams to chat and be involved. How do you think Phil feels that it's a strange thing that someone in someone's chat could become such a big feature of a stream that they are like a feature for Christ's sake? And then there's 3 of them, and then there's more. How do you think Phil feels about that relationship, that the people in his chat gain notoriety and become like personalities themselves that people talk about?
I think he's broadly okay with it until they start pushing their luck. Because, again, using Snowcall as the example, he's somebody who Phil should ostensibly be very grateful for because he tips so frequently. Even if it's only $1.50, it mounts up. So the fact that Snowcall's willing to give him money just for the sake of a simple question that you could easily answer in 2 or 3 sentences, you'd think he'd be appreciative of it. But because of the content of those questions and the fact that Snowcall has objected at times, means that Phil is distasteful of him. So his behavior has upset Phil, and as a result of that, Phil's relationship with Snowcall has changed. Whereas if you're somebody like Jax, who just comes here, gives money, and then leaves, and you only become notable because other people are talking about you, he's okay with that because ultimately you're still coming and giving him money. So I think that is what matters to Phil. As long as you don't step out of line, he doesn't mind. But if you do start to step out of line, tension's being shifted from him to you, and he can't be having that.
Also, before we move on from these people, it is notable that Phil will we're going to come on to his rules and the way you can and can't get banned in a little bit, I think. But Phil is quite happy to sort of discipline people in his chat, especially long-term people, like you say, like Snowcall, and he won't just sort of pander to them because they give him money, but he'll be mean to them and they'll still give him money. Which is
I don't know. I really. It's driven me mad because, again, to me, it stands out as a symptom of abuse. In anyone else with a wider support network or a greater sense of self-esteem or just any sort of ability to reason and think I deserve better than that would go. And I think that's why we're at the point where we're at, because most of the people who would have. Most of the detractors, we're going to get to this a bit later as well, but there's a lot of detractors who are former fans of Phil, and something Phil's done has offended them, so they've gone. And it's, I think, for better or worse, most people do. So Phil is ultimately left with the people who won't, for whatever reason.
So it's kind of like a filter system has happened over the years.
Yeah, kind of. It's like an accidental filter. He's sort of... See, I remember reading a while ago the theory that, you know how when you get like those Nigerian emails, the
Yeah.
phishing scams and things, and you know how the English is always really, really bad.
Yeah, I know what
and
you're going to
you
come
read
to.
and think.
You're
Yeah,
supposed
you
to
think.
filter out all the smart people who get this and say only the dummies. Yeah, so he's
I
like
feel like it's that.
yeah, it's
I
like
feel
a
like
dummy
that with Phil. He's
filter.
that abrasive because anybody else who is smart enough would call him on his shit.
It's reminding me when he recently did the tip jar thing, and Phil automatically talks about the things that are in his mind that he doesn't want to talk about because he hasn't got the wherewithal to sort of stop himself. So he did that analogy of the tip jar. We used to work at a sandwich shop. They would prime the tip jar. Of course, I don't prime the tip jar on my stream. I mean, I didn't really just say that. And then he called the people that would fall for it dummies. And then he proceeded to carry on asking for tips from the people. It's like me saying to you, you're so dumb that you can't see that I'm calling you a dummy. So, like, thumbs up for that, I think. that like resonates with what you were just saying, yeah?
Yeah. It's a very similar thing, yeah. It's like explicitly laying it out and then wondering how do you keep falling for it? I basically keep telling you that I'm about to rip you off. How do you people keep falling for it? But again, you're not gonna sort of like object to it if you're the one who's doing the ripping off, are you? If you're the one who's constantly being given money for acting like a knob to your audience, probably not going to stop being a knob because they're just going to keep giving you money when you are.
There's a double-fold thing of consistency. One is that Phil has actually been quite consistently himself over the years. So, like you say, that filter has longer time to sort of pass out. But there's another point, which is that if it works, don't fix it. So stepping outside your box and risking, if I was DarksydePhil and I was getting whatever money it is regularly, and I had the option of making better content and changing my ways, but I might lose all that money. Like, until that money really gets so little that I can't survive on it, you just sort of keep going back to it's like a rat keep going back to the, in a maze, isn't it? Yeah, the lever. You just keep going back and pressing it until it just doesn't do the job anymore, I guess. Like, he's maybe too afraid to step out of that comfort zone.
Yeah, we've got to get to that later, but yeah, that's definitely a thing.
So should we get on to the next category there, which will be the detractors? So we've got a whole bunch of people there that we've discussed who watch Phil because they like Phil and they actually just watch Phil and they enjoy his content. They like the way he behaves and they give him money, and we've discussed those people. For if anyone's got any other kinds of groups in chat that they think watch Phil that we haven't chatted about, that we can chat about, that aren't offensive, then you put them in chat and maybe we'll talk about them. But we'll move on to the next one, which is these are legit, also assuming these are legit people, the detractors, because it is hard, like you said, to know who in chat is a detractor and who's not. But Phil certainly has a group of long-term detractors. So where does my questions here I've written in the notes are sort of, where does it end? Because people seem to maintain detraction. They, like, some people, like you said, would be offended, they'd look away, they'd go and do something else. But for Phil, some people are either that offended or that incensed by him on their first discovery that they stay there even though they don't like him. They stay there and they don't drift away and get bored. So how does detraction become a counterculture community, and how do detractors persist? Go.
All right, so I'm thinking about this, and when you're watching somebody, they're taking up a chunk of your life, and like with all your interests and hobbies, you're getting some element of personality from it. You're getting some element of identity from it. Like, it's like being a metal fan and listening to metal. You're not going to spend all your day, every minute of every day listening to metal, but you still take on enough of it where you think, I'm going to grow my hair, I've got to get tattoos, whatever, you're going to dress a certain way. So you get some sense of identity from it. And then that goes away. So in this example, it would be, you've been a fan of Phil's for a while, you've been part of his chat for a while, you've given him money over the years, and then all of a sudden you're either banned or he does something that offends you to the point where you think, I'm done, and you leave. And that goes away. So there's a chunk of your identity and your time that you now have to fill with something else. And at that moment, if you discovered that there's a community of people who've been through something like you, who were also fans of the DarksydePhil, and were then either banned or offended into leaving, and now there's a group of them talking shit about him for catharsis and to take the piss, and you go and have a look, and then you see all this extant stuff. You see all these like other restreamers, and you see all these other different content creators. You see people who clip him, and you see people who analyze him, and you see people who edit him. So there's a community here. So your like sense of community that you sort of cut out when you left DarksydePhil. There's a replacement here, and luckily you don't need to do anything really new or different. It slots right in because you're all still talking about DarksydePhil. You're just on the other side now. You're not like, yeah, he's great, and oh, I can't wait for this playthrough. You're like, oh my god, he's a knob. I can't believe he said that. So there's that element to it as well, and that was a thing for me because I thought it's the community that keeps it strong. That it's not unknown or it's not unusual for detractors to go, oh guys, I just can't anymore, and walk away. Creators have done it. Sunspot Gallery did it. El Crimson King did it. Mighty D does it every now and then. People need breaks and to sort of separate themselves and to go and do other things. And they might not come back, or if they do, they might drop in every now and then, or they might come back after being, feeling a bit refreshed. I'm fully ready to jump back in now. So there's always going to be a community here, because as long as DarksydePhil's it, there's going to be a community. I would wager that the detractor community is going to outlive DarksydePhil, because even once he's done and he stops,
we've still got
there's
hours
going to be people
and hours of...
analysing that. Yeah. There's all this other stuff to get through as well, but we've also got like the big event, and loads of people are going to have says on that. So the community will like ripple on for a while. But either way, at this moment, and for the foreseeable future, there's always going to be a detractor community, and it's a community. It's a community that rewards people and encourages people to create, and it does creative things with the source material. You never know if you're going to find somebody who's being serious about it, like me when I talk psychology, or somebody who's going to be hilarious with it, like Dick Stroking Phil Vlogs, who recuts Phil and edits it together in funny ways. So there's always going to be something for you. There's always going to be somebody who's got an interest of yours and he's also a detractor of DarksydePhil. You could be fucking religious and take DarksydePhil and there's a pastor for you.
True.
So,
do you think that the DarksydePhil versus the detractor community, do you think the detractor community is more healthy than Phil's community?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And not just because, we're detractors and we're bound to say that, but because Phil strangles his community. Again, going back to the Snowcarl thing, this is a meme that was sort of like organically developing within it. And Phil couldn't even lean into it. He couldn't say like, all right, $10 and I'll name a Pokemon something Carl, whoever, or I'll do something like that. He couldn't like in any way.
He should have changed his own name to DarksydePhil for the day or something.
Yeah, could have done that. Yeah, $150. I'll change my name to DarksydePhil for the day. He couldn't do that, if we hit this goal, I'll name this character this. If we do this, he can't like capitalize on him. He's not that impulsive. He's not that creative. He's not that quick. He needs to plan things in advance.
Any creativity that happens in chat feels like they're pushing the boundary till they get banned with it. All the creativity that happens outside in the detractor world. I hear this said on That Being Said podcast. Shouts out to That Being Said. I hear this said that one of the attitudes that is that the detractor community are all negative. Like Phil would say, they're the bullies, they're the negative ones, so they're bad people. But in actual fact, the detractor community can have different opinions and discuss them openly without anyone falling out and having any problems. No one's getting banned from anywhere. It feels like a much more healthy and positive community. And there's an irony because it's built around being negative about Phil, do you think?
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, I've said this for ages now. One of the most impressive things about DarksydePhil is his ability to unite everybody against him. You can be left or right wing, and as long as you both hate DarksydePhil, you're gonna put all that to one side when you're in a detractor chat. Like I know I've spoken to there's like left wing detractors who follow me because I'm very left wing and I post a lot of my politics on Twitter, and I know that there's right wing detractors who don't follow me because of it, and that's fine because I don't expect them to follow me for that. But when we're all coming together to talk about DarksydePhil, none of that matters. We're all talking about DarksydePhil. So it's amazing that he like unifies this community around him, whereas ultimately in other situations people would be divided. But there's also this element of in any other community based around a streamer, you would have a fan community that created things. You would have people who clipped things. You would have people doing like fan art. You would have people doing compilations of playthroughs and things. But you don't have that with Phil. If you took away one of my favorite thought experiments, as it were, is if you took away all the detractor content, what would be left other than Phil?
Yeah.
And there's no fan channels at all,
And I also think,
and that's, you need that for a healthy community.
with his viewership, like if all the detractors just suddenly for 1 week, like if we said for 1 week we're not watching any of his streams, no one's doing any reactions, like I'm sure his YouTube algorithmic thing would just drop off a cliff.
Yeah, because again, in the like brutal irony of Phil not being good at the YouTube algorithm, it's only getting there because there's people searching detractor stuff, and he's coming up in the associated people like you. People who watch detractor content sometimes look at DarksydePhil, and it's like 90% of that is also Pig Go being sent right to Phil's channel. But yeah, there's very little to bring anything to DarksydePhil. You have to get through the detractor channel first. So
coming back to these detractors, we started off with people who were fans of Phil's and they got like put off. I've got a couple more questions about that specifically. Why do you think Phil is so hostile to people?
There are many reasons why. I think just a few. There's his unique personality, which is abrasive by nature. He's very competitive. He's very argumentative. He does not take criticism well. He does not accept criticism or critique or any sort of like suggestions that don't immediately fit with what he wants to do. You've also got there's too many, man. It's like I think part of it is because he has a legacy, for want of a better term, on YouTube. He's known for a certain thing, and not just like the incident, but he's known for a particular style of content that was popular at a particular time, but now isn't. So when you're looking for content, you're likely to look for what he's doing, because he's not doing what other people do. Other people are far more affable, they're far more welcoming, they're far better with their chats. It's very rare that, you know, you'll get someone like LTG who won't even put on his camera for less than like $50 or whatever. But
okay, so in his defense,
sorry, just quickly, if you very quickly, if you wanted to like get into DarksydePhil and you want to start watching his content and all that, the more eyes on his streams, the more potential criticism, the more potential that there is for somebody to properly call him out and break somebody that he already has under his control out of it. There's already, you know, the more possibility for somebody making a video that goes viral, you know. So there's a risk to Phil of letting more people in, and he's stuck in this position where he can't let so many people in, but he needs to let some in. So more eyes on Phil's work is actually a bad thing for Phil, because more eyes means more potential criticism, more potential detractors.
This is what I was going to come to. Like, for somebody who, for better or worse, over the years has had a lot of people come into chat and just like say something stupid or deliberately try and trip him up or whatever. Like, he must have a different. Like, when I have people in chat here and they're chatting, I'm reading it, and like in my brain, I'm not thinking, "Are you trying to fuck me over? Who are you? Oh, should I read that out loud, or are you just another one of these detractors?" Like, maybe Phil's got this like defense filter going on that makes him appear hostile to a new chat. Like I said the other week, I gave him the benefit of the doubt. I went into his stream as a real person and just tried to chat normally, and at some point he was rude to me, and I was not being rude to him. I wasn't being a detractor. I was just like talking about background music. So like it's almost like he's already amped up for a fight. Do you think that that's a fair thing to say, or is that something that was always going on with Phil from the Street Fighter days? Or
just going to make a quick note to Pig Go background music. Try and find that. I think a lot of it is because he's that defensive as a narcissist. He's going to be very insecure, and he doesn't have the sort of internal structure that he needs to feel better about himself. So he needs to hear it from other people, and when he doesn't hear it from other people, he gets very anxious, nervous, and then very like combative, because again, it sort of goes back to what we're going to come on into in a minute. He can't take criticism very well, but it was there from the fighting game days, from the FGC days. I think it was probably there in school as well. I'll bet he was the sort of person who would talk shit and then run from the fight. So it's probably been there since adolescence, at least. But since it was there at the fighting game days, we can at least say it's not because of YouTube and his experiences with, you know, detractors or streaming or whatever. It was there before.
Yeah.
You know, plenty of people from the FGC testify he was like this. There's websites that he posted up. You know, we know
So recently he's been saying, like, you know, for example, I'm playing this game for a second time, and the first time I didn't do interactive content. It was just me and a camera. Now I'm here talking to you people, so it should be more fun. But doesn't he realise, or should he realise, that it won't be more fun because the people are there talking to him and he fucking hates that and he's hostile? Like, other streamers enjoy the chat and that's a positive to them, whereas it feels hostile to chat. Like, isn't it strange that somebody whose profession is to sit and talk to people on the internet is angry at all the people talking in?
Yeah, he should recognise that, but he doesn't have the capacity to. Well, I think he has the capacity to do it because everybody has the capacity. Except psychopaths, I guess. But no, even psychopaths, because you can be aware of it without necessarily feeling it. But he's unwilling to do it. That's my point. He's unwilling to sort of feel the need to look inwards. He will present it to you. He'll be like, oh, I've changed. I'm a different person now. I've learned from my mistakes and all that. But he's not done the inward reflection to it. He's only seen that he's been criticised for certain things, and as such, he needs to tone those behaviours down or look like he's toning those behaviours down. Internally, he doesn't look inwards to the point where he can think, actually, yeah, I was a bit of a knob to John and Howard. So for example, so he can't do that. He can't internalize or reflect internally on what he's done, what's gone wrong, what the actions were, what the consequences were, how to avoid that in future. He can't plan like that. He's not good at it at all, and that has like your knock-on effect with your audience, because when people disappear, if you've got the excuse of, oh, they were undercover detractors, or they were only just here to troll, or any of the excuses that Phil can conjure up, you will never need to look at your behavior. You will always be able to find an excuse elsewhere. So Phil externalizes that a lot. He externalizes consequences a lot. He externalizes like his responsibility.
So to break that down in like a way that I can understand in my brain, is that like, for example, like if I say something to someone and they get cross, I might lie awake that night and think, oh, do you know, I've been rude to so and so, and I shouldn't have said that, and maybe I should have, or did I say it right? And I go over it, and it makes but Phil, that doesn't happen because Phil thinks they're a fucking twat, and that's that. Yeah. And like, there's no conversation after in his mind, guilt, further thought. Like,
basically that. Yeah. If you have like it's your locus of control. If you have an internal locus of control, you are willing to look inwards when something goes wrong and see if your behaviour was what caused fault. See how and where you were at fault. Whereas if you have an external locus of control, you're more likely to project responsibility outwards. So it's not my fault that I'm begging; it's detractors' fault because I can't get a sponsorship deal, for my audience.
That he doesn't want because it would be shilling. But
exactly. Yeah. Also, if I took that deal, it would be shilling. And by the way, I do get them all the time offered, but I don't take them because I don't want to shill. But I can't get them because of detractors. So it's that. It's externalized versus internalized. If you couldn't get sponsorship deals, you might look at what about your content is objectionable? What is it about what you do that might like put advertisers or sponsors off? You'd look at that. You'd look at how you make your stuff appealing to them, whereas Phil... Surely
he must be able to be honest with himself and say, look, at one point I jerked off on camera, so there aren't many sponsors who are going to like be down with that, because when you search for me, that's the first thing that comes up, and when they search me, that'll be the first thing that comes up. So unless you're going to go ironically like with like a condom company or something, or like
like Adam and Eve or Fleshlight
or like Viagra pills or something. Like you're not like, there aren't many sponsorships who you can really approach, are there? Like,
no, but again, you would externalizing it. You would say that was so many years ago. If it weren't for detractors constantly posting that up and constantly bringing that up and be, oh, did you know that this person beat off on stream in front of children? If it weren't for detractors acting like that, everybody would have forgotten and moved on.
I forgot to say in
front of children. But because detractors keep bringing it up, he can never get sponsors, because the moment he says I'm sponsored with this company, they flood these company with like, oh, he masturbated on stream and all that stuff. So again, externalizing it. It's not the fact that he masturbates, it's the fact that people keep bringing it up. That's what's holding him back.
Do you want to do why can't Phil take advice or critique a little bit later with the rules? And
yes. Okay.
So, and I was going to ask for 5 tips for people to help them let it go if you want, but we'll do that a little bit later with the rules.
Oh, just throw it open to chat. But if anyone in chat has got advice for letting it go, let it go.
We'll do that after the rules, Jack. But you just sort of touched on something that I wanted to cover here, and that will conclude the detractors bit,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is that I actually think there are some people that might take it too far, and like, you know, there are people that have swatted Phil. There are people that I don't know how I stand on publishing someone's bank account details. Like, obviously, I'm interested in the data, and you know, it proves a lot of things that people have been saying about the spending of the money. But you know, there are certain lines drawn in, you know, just general behaviour that if you group everyone as the detractors, some of them seem to go a bit far. What are your thoughts on that? And you know, I also, my question would be, you know, relating it to Phil and his audience. You know, he must that must be pretty fucking extreme to go through, and that must affect the way he perceives detractors.
That's probably up there with like the first "This Is How You Don't Play" becoming like the first bloody nose he took in terms of like changing his.
This is how you don't play.
Detractors.
This is how you don't play is fine for somebody to edit a video, but
Yeah,
for
yeah.
somebody to
No, no,
send the police to
what
your
I'm saying
house
is-
is like fucking.
What I'm saying
Yeah.
is, like, up until that point, Phil was like, it's quite easy for Phil to just dismiss any detractor as, oh, it's just some random, like.
Oh, I see what you
person
mean, right? Yeah,
some
they
random
had no
asshole.
effect on him.
But that was like your first public battering. That was the
Yeah.
first sort of like real look at how much of an asshole this guy is, and it impacted his image as well. So he took a huge hit from that personally. That affected his image, and for the first time, people had a thing to like group around. He's not wrong in that. There were detractor groups before, but this became like your first real thing that detractors did. It wasn't just slagging him off and leaving comments. It was this. They have a thing to do now. So, in terms of that changing his attitude towards, oh, it's just some random arsehole, I don't care about him. It's just some random commenter, I don't give a fuck. Now it's detractors. Now it's an evil group out with malice, out to harm him. And that's swatting, as it were. We should clarify that as well. It wasn't swatting, it was a police check, or it was like a welfare check. The police are coming round because they've had a report and someone's asked to check up on you.
Right.
Like, a SWAT team didn't burst into his house with guns drawn, pointed at him. They knocked, like, it was the police, I think 2 police officers, knocked on the door, asked them to come out, and then they did like a walk around the house, and you can see, because Phil left the stream on, so you can see them come in and say, oh, it's just gamer shit, and walk back out again.
Right.
But again, to Phil, swatting. Been swatted.
A threat on his
So-
life.
Yeah. And then there's the stream after it where it's like, you know, if you took part in making This Is How You Don't Play, you just tried to get me killed. So that, again, probably really harshes his attitude towards detractors. But I think, because, again, being Phil, you're going to over-exaggerate the negatives to make you look like the victim. Whereas Phil's actually got it really easy compared to other people who've had issues with fans overstepping a line. Phil's never been swatted. Phil hasn't been trolled the same way someone like Wings has been trolled. Phil hasn't had interactions with fans to the extent that Boogie has. Phil has had a relatively quiet time with detractors, especially in recent years. Phil, and I think a lot of that is due to the Sons of Kojima, which we don't need to get into, but the fact is, after that, detractors seem to get a bit better about policing themselves as a community, and sort of took on the broader Safari rules of look, but don't touch. You know,
I have
to mock Phil, but
I have
don't
heard
know
it said
talking
in.
about too much.
Sorry to cut in, but I have heard it said in a couple of conversations that it's like, you know, in any community you're going to get outliers, and like whilst the detractor community in the main is you know, has an element of fair play about it, there are a few who might take it too far, and like some, because there is no like organized, there's no like hierarchy of detractors and here are the rules. It's just people acting as individuals. You like, as a detractor community, people don't want to sort of take personal responsibility for the individual actions of some outliers, in much the same way as we were talking about Derish and Only Iced Coffee. But I personally, I'll draw a line in the sand and say, like, I think some things are a bit too far, and like I don't know, like, you know, I don't know where that line exactly falls, because Phil's constantly talking about his finances on stream, isn't he? And so to have his finances revealed in public,
It sort of feels like it's your own fault at that point, doesn't it?
yeah,
Like you've poked the bear too much. It's eventually, after a while, somebody's going to get fed up and they're going to go to look. If you've made it such a part, and by this point it had been years. I mean, we're only talking 2 years ago, but even then, he's been going on about it for years. So eventually, like you said, we as a group don't have like a cohesive structure, and in accordance with that, there's no sort of like any sort of like institution of justice. So we don't have a way of going, right, we'll this thing has happened. It was this detractor. We need to punish them. We are just like a loose collective of people. And as a result, you can't hold us responsible for the actions of one person. Just like every group has this. Every social group, every community that's focused around like a group, a thing, a hobby. Like Magic the Gathering, Dungeons and Dragons, video games, heavy metal, any sort of group around any sort of hobby will have this sort of thing. I bet even train spotters have like a group online, and they'll have like their own legend. They'll have their own OICs, and they'll have their own evil AJs.
I was looking at an interesting comment there about debunking his lies is not trolling. We did talk about it last time, but just a very quick. The difference between a detractor and a troll is something to do with an establishment of fair play and justice. Is there? Would you say, or something like that?
I think for Phil's perspective, yeah. If for us it was intent, I determined it as intent. Because intent to troll is not the same as being a detractor. Being a detractor, we're just sort of sitting and laughing and maybe you're doing something, but like
holding him to account in some way. And we discussed that. I asked you how come we didn't. This might have been off camera, but I asked you how come we didn't focus on people like Putin. But then you said people do hold Putin to account, and people like us are not able to hold him to account. But with our place on the internet, and with Phil's place on the internet, it's almost like a social justice group in a way. The detractors that honestly, I see it like that, providing some sort of social value.
Yeah, okay, yeah, in that regard, yeah, I can see what you mean. But yeah, it's the difference between intent and like I said, with detractors, you're just watching, you're just laughing. You do something like piece where you've written a script to track like donations that go through. Again, you're not invading Phil's privacy. You're just tracking what's going through his chat. So when somebody sends a tip and it flashes up in chat, you're recording that. There's nothing like inherently illegal with it. There's nothing inherently invasive about it, because anyone could do it. Anyone could learn to write that script. Or if you wanted to do it manually, you just sit there and every time somebody sends a tip, you just write it down and total it up.
Also, I did notice
it's not impossible, but
there are lots of different. It's like there are lots of different people with different skills, so they bring different things to the table. A good example would be Prophet with their technical knowledge about computers. Of course, with your interesting background in forensic psychology. Different people bring different things to the table. And what you just said there, I mean, to somebody it might be it might be their thing to do that table and note these things down. To another, it might seem quite extreme. And then I think there's a very difficult line between somebody then saying, oh, I could get access to someone's bank account, or I know where they live and I could publish that online, or there are things that maybe are just a bit further over that line that I guess some people still do. So
but again, like piece of pieces intent isn't to sort of like break into Phil's private account or get like dirt on him. It's to show him this is how much you're wasting. This
hold
is how
him to
much
account
your
again.
money. So the holding to account thing again, like with Brittany Gates when she talks about business, she's holding him to account by going, you're making these business decisions, they are bad, you could be doing better. So there's intent is the difference for me, because nobody's really intending to harm Phil unless they do go actively try to do it, like hack his bank accounts or dox him or dox his supporters.
And of course, we're not suggesting that anyone should do those extreme things.
No. But again, to me, that's always been the difference between a troll and detractor. Whereas for Phil, I think the two terms are interchangeable. You are a troll and a detractor at the same time. He doesn't make that sort of distinction. He just uses whatever
and of course,
word he wants at the time.
What you said earlier, the fact that because he's not going to accept any personal responsibility, like he doesn't think he's in the wrong, you're a twat. Like if you are a troll, you are a detractor, because there's no social justice holding to anyone to account. You're not doing any of those things. You're just being mean to Phil. And that's that. That's
Phil's distinction. Are you being nice to him or are you being mean to him? If you're being nice to him, then great, you're welcome to come in and keep giving him money. But if you're being mean to him,
talking of this, should we get into the rules, because this is his distinction, isn't it? Rules. Go on then. So to make things more clear in chat, Phil has some rules for people who are allowed in chat. The first one is you're not allowed in there unless you've subscribed for over a day. So Go ahead, tell me about some rules and some feelings and penalties and things.
Well, if you go off Phil's, like, he has a pre-stream slide where he has the rules, and they are very basic. Like, just don't be mean to people, don't abuse cap, don't spam stuff.
Does he mention don't abuse cap?
But yeah, don't abuse caps. You'll get a warning off Nightbot if you abuse
caps. I thought you meant
caps. Not cap. No. That should be a given. Like, but yeah, there are ostensibly few written rules, but there's always going to be unwritten rules, and some of them will be stuff like, don't take the piss out of Derek. Don't change your name to Derek Hip and then spam me with the same comment, because I will ban both of you until the real one contacts me and asks to be unbanned. So there's stuff like that. Cat Ballyhoo in chat has said, don't mention detractors or their content, which again is not written down, but it is a rule in Phil's chat.
And he'll when something comes up in a comment, I've gone through the whole of this, just noticing everyone's comment. Thank you all for being here, and I'm seeing it. It's all recorded. We can talk about it in chat and comments and things. But Phil will pick on bang, so and so said this, that you're fucking taking the piss, right? You're out. He'll pick them out almost like a hawkeye on this. They come up, bang, he's on it, and he calls them out every time.
Yeah, to me, I think there's two purposes there. And one is reaffirming Phil's status as the one in charge. It puts him right at the top of the social pile because it's his stream. He has the power to ban you. You've said something that he disagrees with, so he's taking the decision. He's doing it. So there's a healthy dose of ego reassurance there. But the other is to tell everybody else, if you step out of line, fuck you, I will do exactly the same thing to you. Probably be worse, actually. So do you really want to risk it? Yeah, and when you're a fan who's actually there for a bit of community, you're probably not going to want to risk it. If you do enjoy, for whatever reason, talking to somebody like Snowcarl regularly, or Jade, or a bit Derish,
Clyde Baxter,
you're not going to want to risk being kicked.
If Clyde's listening, I used to like talking to Clyde Baxter before I got banned. Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it, that it's a relationship, because I've had this relationship now with people being a streamer, and it's like a group that we are. I happen to be the one with the camera on me. I joke about it sometimes. I'm the main one, but actually, it's a group, isn't it? Like you say, community. Yeah. And for Phil to see these people in chat and have this, his relationship, his perception is, I'm the fucking main one. And one of the rules is don't talk about anything else other than me or the fucking game. I'm the main one.
Oh, you're derailing.
Yeah.
That to me is his narcissism, writ large. It's incredibly insecure. This is his stream. It's his chat. What are you here for if not him? What are you talking about if not him? Why are you in chat talking about something that's not him? If you want to talk about something else, there are all these other streams where you can go to and talk about it. Here to talk about me and my stuff.
Could you imagine trying to cultivate we talk audience, community, they're words, sometimes they're marketing buzzwords, but we need words for things. Could you imagine, I feel like I don't want to say that about people in chat who are more than that, who are more than just an audience or a community, because it's a bigger thing here. It's more cohesive. But could you imagine trying to do that online and being mean to people, sending them away, telling them if they want to talk, they've got to do it somewhere else? That is a pure example of strangling his community, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's killing his community. It sort of goes back to the Snowcarl meme thing again. It's one of those things where you can't allow your community to grow. Sorry, your community won't grow well if you don't allow it to. If you don't allow it the freedom of expression and discussion and comment that is necessary for groups to be able to form the bonds that make it cohesive. You see it all the time with sporting events. If the Super Bowl's on in America and someone goes, "Oh, Phil, have you seen this from the Super Bowl?" Or talking to chat, "Hey guys, I know that you're a fan of this sport, of this team. What did you see this?" You'll get banned for derailing. You'll get warned or banned because you're talking about something that's not about Phil's chat. Whereas when England were doing really, really well in Euros, it was great being in detractor chats because all the British detractors, all the English detractors as well, sorry, King Jad, all the English detractors were like, "Hey, fucking seen that result, fucking goal, man. Oh, this is great. Look how far we do. We're coming home." And then it didn't. But the point is they were allowed that freedom of expression to talk. So they that rule isn't there, so the community doesn't choke as a result. It grows better.
And it actually hard. I've had people in chat where I've been playing Genshin Impact, and they've been talking to each other about something that I don't really know about, and they're happy to having a chat to each other, and they're forming social bonds, like they're forming a relationship, and they're not just coming back to chat for me, they're coming back for the whole stream, for each other. Like that's what the community is. So for Phil to be like, it's almost, you're not allowed to, like if you were to start up a conversation, like you said, you have to go away to do that. So it seems strange that he would want to break that. Is there something in that about control and not allowing the subordinates, you know, I'm getting a bit, I don't really want to talk cults because I don't think it's fair to, you know, put big labels on things that I don't know about cults, but is that a culty thing in some way, to not allow people this freedom to interact with each other and build bonds?
Yeah. It's partly narcissistic because it involves, like, you would see this with other narcissists or narcissists in interpersonal situations when, you know, if you're in a group with them, they will always try to make things about themselves. They like to dominate topics of conversation. They like to be the center of attention and like all, you know, discussion to be about them. And it's sort of partly that, but it does also work in a cult-like way as well, because the more your group sort of talks freely, the more likely that group or members of that group are to question you or to consider alternative perspectives that might be critical of you. So it might not seem it at first, but like as your sources of information are restricted and as your ability to talk freely is squashed, it's harder to sort of like call somebody out. It would be harder for somebody in chat to sort of like call Phil out on something because they're fearing getting banned. Or they don't know that Phil is wrong because they've not gone anywhere else to check.
And there's no support in chat. There's no one.
No, you can't sort of like say to somebody else, hey, I think Phil's wrong about that. Do you think that? No. Well, because they're unlikely to like agree with you at best. They won't want to discuss it in middle, or they'll rat you out to Phil at worst. So it becomes a risk both ways. You don't want to like mention it in case you get in trouble, and you also don't want anybody mention it to you in case you then get found out and are seen to be participating in it.
It's funny that earlier you said that the detractor community was self-policing, in that if people are going a bit far, they'll say, hey, you're going a bit far, and stuff like that. But and also there are people they don't know that they can't even talk to. So yeah, but like with Phil, his own chat are almost like secret policing themselves, like they're their own Stasi.
Yeah, basically that's sort of like the function that OIC took, and I think there's on his website, K Galleon is like the lone mod there. He's like probably the lone user as well, but he has those forums locked down. You know, he's exactly that sort of person. You can post a comment critical of Phil, and he'll be like, "This has nothing to do with DarksydePhil. I'm locking this thread, and that'll be it, and you'll be banned." And I think it's Eternal Napalm might be a particularly bad one as well. That name sticks out to me as well for a reason. So his mods will be his Stasi-esque. I think Baxter sort of like does it best when he calls them the flying monkeys. They'll serve Phil's purposes. They'll go out and do Phil's bidding. You know, if Phil says, you know, like, watch out for this person, he's been speaking up a bit lately and I'm not happy with it. Or they'll come to Phil and say the detractors are talking about this, so watch out for this meme. You know, it works both ways, and they serve that purpose of like making sure the group conforms to what Phil wants them to conform to.
And so when you we mentioned it just briefly as well, like there are penalties in Phil's chat, and it's not like other chats where you're either like at some point I've had a couple maybe where people have been particularly contentious in chat, and actually what I tend to do is like talk to them a little bit and explain I'm not going to ban them, and like, you know, hopefully we can just get around them being a bit of an idiot. Everyone can see them being an idiot, can they calm down? But like for Phil it's almost like insta ban, but then you have got some sort of like he's got a sliding scale somewhere along the line, hasn't he? You've got some sort of arbitration to get your way back in if you apologise. Phil's got like, it's not just one penalty, he's got like a series of penalties, has he?
Yeah, and you can sort of like soften the blow, as it were, by being somebody he recognises will apologise or will tip. You can insulate yourself from it by giving a lot of money. That's always a guarantee, but it does slightly increase your chances of a bit of kindness and benevolence from Phil. Maybe he'll only time you out instead of actually outright banning you. Snowcall's been timed out for days here and there rather than being outright banned and having to apologise again. But there's various things, and a lot of them are determined by Phil's emotional state at the time. What he thinks, how much of a mood he's in, what he thinks you've done, whether you've pushed it too far or whatever. You know, it depends on how he's feeling at the time. But sometimes he'll just lean in and ban you quietly. Other times he'll make an actual like example of you, and sometimes you'll get like, again to Snowcall, but the one I remember recently, Snowcall asked question on the pre-stream podcast, and Phil got out that Saints Row dubstep gun and just acted like a clown for like a minute or so, and then went, "No, stupid," right into the camera. So, and people, like someone like Snowcall is happy to pay for that. It's very odd, but again, he gets away with it because I'm telling him, don't worry. Yeah, Snowcall gets away with it because he sort of vaguely insulated himself from being permanently banned. And he's also got too many ties in that community to be somebody who, like, say, War Dog Leader, who is a fan and then is insulted by Phil and then goes, right, fuck you, I'm out, and leaves. Snowcall just keeps going back to the community, whereas other people would leave permanently. So it's interesting dynamics. You have Phil being tempestuous, temperamental, and then you've got various members who are in different stages of attachment to him. So he gets to sort of like pick and choose his punishments as he sees fit. It's really fascinating.
Do you want to go deeper on any aspects of the rules and the penalties, or should I ask the next question?
Just like to briefly mention, Nutsifus raised a very good point in chat that Phil promotes backstabbing and competition amongst them, and that works in Phil's favour because it means they never fully trust themselves with each other. So you can never trust that what you're saying to somebody will be kept in confidence, and it keeps them arguing. It stops them like revolting against you. They're too paranoid to talk about it to each other. So instead, they play this like game of, I'm playing a role, but I don't know if I trust that person, but I do trust this other person, but I don't know if they talk to that.
It's
so
like
there's like
Among Us.
Yeah, sort of. I do think it's very Big Brothery. You know how like you would have
allegiances,
like how they'd raise the children to snitch on the parent.
Oh, you mean actually? So, 1984.
Yeah, not the show, the actual 1984, the Big Brother bit where people are always being watched, and there are all these different groups, and nobody ever really knows what's going on because the population is kept in like a state of disarray and distraction. So it's a bit like that. But yeah.
This moves us on because we were talking about the fact that Phil is the arbiter and all these people are in the chat and he's dishing out the rules. We're going to talk, or I'm going to get you to talk about the different perceptions, the different perceptions Phil has in his role and status versus your role and status. And his role is like a one-off thing, isn't it? It's his role, but there's different roles in the chat. There's people that pay and there's people that don't. So do you want to break down these three different positions?
Yeah. Because Phil has that expectation that if you're in his chat, you're going to be doing one of three things. You're going to be silent, or you're going to be talking, or you're going to be giving. And if someone like Derish fills the talking role, somebody like, well, I don't know, just sit there and watch and not say anything. Just watch. You when you see like he's got 250 people watching, and then you see like his active chat list, he's only like 10. That must be a bunch of people sat there like not interacting. Maybe, and again, we sort of spoke about this briefly, that you might just have him on in the background.
Yeah, it might be like he might have some fake bots, or he might have like 10 computers on in his house, or like. But it might, because if you pay for bots, you don't get the active chat as well. Like you just get the view count, don't you? So I don't know, but it might be all these different things. But yeah.
But then, even when you get to the level where you're somebody who pays. You're on one of several levels there. You're either somebody who pays like Snowcall $1.50 here or there, what he used to call the 50-bit bitches when he was on Twitch, or you've got like somebody who will wail out every now and then, but isn't really that active. But because you wail out, Phil knows you and will like you are more favoured.
The big spenders.
Or you're somebody who like Jax or 1 Minute Man who does it regularly, but not every other. Like you won't be. Over a period of time, it'd be one-off here, and then like for 1 Minute Man, it's every day after the break, But
there is some contention
it's every day Street Fighter.
With 1 Minute Man, isn't there some contention as to whether it's Phil himself priming the pot, or some other clandestine motive for somebody putting the money in?
It's very odd that you get to this point where, like, your community is so bizarre. It's comprised of so. Like unusual people that you can generally have this discussion. I can't imagine sort of like thinking, is one of your viewers real, or not.
It's an absolute extreme, isn't it? It really is like a grotesque or like a freak show example. And that's why, as a psychologist and as somebody interested in that, that's why we're using Phil as an example. And he's done it to himself, and he's persisted, and he's been shown the warnings and the flags, and people have made the videos to explain it in not very nice terms and clear terms and whatever you like. And we've got here, and we're here. So like, it's remarkable. Like, it's really interesting as well, because I'm streaming. I've got a little tip me thing underneath. Like, there's lots of people we're going to come onto in a little bit that are more normal and more just fit the norms of the medium more. But Phil refuses, and he's out there on his own. So he is at this extreme case, isn't he?
Yeah, and again, like you said, he's done it to himself. He's sort of backed himself into this corner because he's had these very weird expectations of what people are coming for, and as a result, what he wants from them. He does it a lot where he'll talk about, I'm an interactive streamer, I'm a variety streamer. You guys pick the games. You guys choose what I'm playing this Halloween marathon and all that. You guys vote on the community polls. He'll do all that. And it's like, that's you abrogating your responsibility to actually doing the work. You don't want to pick this game, or you don't want to like put in the effort. But it's like his impression of, but I'm interactive. How else am I supposed to interact with my fans? I stop and I talk to them and I answer the questions and that. And it's like, yeah, but if they pay you, most of the time, oh, they dare it. But he just has this really weird sort of expectation of what you'll do. And again, that sort of goes back to his narcissism of, you're here in my stream, in my chat, to talk about me and my game. So
when he does his Level 1 podcast, the feature that regularly comes up is gaming news, and I get the impression that Phil views himself as an actual you mentioned the term OG the other day, but I think he must
forget.
Like, you've got to sometimes, as a content creator, you've got to look at yourself and say, what am I doing? Who am I? And where am I? And what's my, thing? And it used to be I'm a Street Fighter player, but now that's gone by the wayside. If you search Twitch for Street Fighter, no one's watching it. Like, what am I doing? I'll tell you what I am. I've been on here longer than anyone else. I can talk authoritatively because of experience. So I'm going to be like the granddaddy of YouTube from now on, and everyone would bloody well better respect everything I say about gaming, because I know more than anyone else, because I've played all the fucking games. So maybe he perceives himself like maybe he perceives himself as some sort of authoritative figure that is worthy of this position just by merit.
He will.
Yeah,
he will. He sees his 14-year legacy as being worthy of respect.
Yeah.
See, exactly, he calls it a legacy. He thinks it's worth respect, and that probably reassures him. He probably tells himself a lot. I've been doing this for 14 years. There's not many people who could say I've been doing this for 14 years. Like even the original OG Let's Players, like Slowbeef, haven't done it consistently. Slowbeef's been on and off over the years. So it's like, for him, that consistency is what matters. That consistency validates his existence. When he was, the moment I realized this was when he was talking to Audra Williams on Twitter. She quote tweeted him something about Burger King, and they got into it, but he said basically, yeah, I've got experience because of 14 years. And she's like, someone had said like he should have been like in trouble long ago because he said these comments that were racist or something, and he's like, yeah, well, if I've been doing it for 14 years, and if I hadn't been, I'd have been banned by now, so obviously I'm doing something right. And she went, well, that don't mean you're not terrible.
Yeah.
That don't mean you're not a horrible person.
No,
that was the moment where I was like, shit, he really values his 14-year legacy.
Yeah, I'm not going to apply this to everyone that's doing everything in the world. I'm just going to try and keep it on Phil, because otherwise I might offend some people. But it could be leveled that if you have been doing something for that long and not achieved, like, you're supposed to sort of graduate through and move on, and like to have not achieved certain things and to still be doing the same thing is actually a marking of failure rather than success, maybe.
Yeah, possibly. We are going to get onto it a little bit later when we talk about like how Phil could change and grow, but
yeah,
generally, yeah, you would experience some development, but Phil has to be sort of dragged in. So it's very weird that I suppose if you are fully aware that you've not like grown, or you've not gone as far as you really should have done after 14 years of doing this, you might feel like a little insecure about yourself. So one of the ways you would reassure yourself of that is to say like, well, that 14 years is worth recognition. Like my previous job before I went into studying in forensic psychology is I was working night shift for a company, and I did it for 13 years. And after 10 years, I got a plaque saying thanks for 10 years long service.
Yeah.
It's like the medal in Red Dwarf,
Yeah.
It's 3 years long service, 6 years long service.
Yeah.
That was me. And after I got that plaque, I was like, I need to be doing something better with my life. But that was like when it started to change for me, and I started to look at doing other things and think, I need out of this job. Because it was like, what have I done after 10 years?
Do you know, it's very interesting that you brought up this idea of the plaque, because Phil recently shot a short, and in the background he's got his YouTube. Like, I'd love one of those YouTube buttons. I've been doing YouTube a while, I'm still grinding it out, but it's like he's like saying it's like there, like YouTube button, like 200 views on this short, but YouTube button, like so. Yeah, it's like
it matters.
Yeah,
it matters to him. It validates his existence, his continued existence, and it reassures him that you've achieved something, mate. You've got the YouTube plaque. Not everybody on YouTube has this.
And there's a huge irony in that the people who are going to be successful in the next 5 or 10 years are not sitting there looking at their plaque, polishing it on the wall, thinking they've done the job. They're actually trying hard to, they're feeling like they're not, like we were talking the other week about, ideas about growth and development and wanting to always be better and do things. And if Phil is saying to himself, I've done it, I'm on top of the mountain, therefore I should be listened to, he's not going to put in any work to get anywhere because he thinks he's already there in a way.
Yeah, there's partly that and partly the fact that he feels entitled to it. But yeah, those are your two main reasons why he's not going to put in the work for it. He feels like he's already done it. He's already paid. He's done it for 14 years now. He should have that response. He should have that crowd. He should have that level of support. He should have that level of recognition as well from people who don't necessarily know who he is. Because I mean, it does sound impressive to go like, oh, I've got 2,000 followers on YouTube. To people who aren't YouTubers, but to people who are YouTubers, it's nothing.
Yeah.
So if you're say 200,000, that's even more impressive. But again, to other YouTubers,
that's an interesting concept as well, because like sometimes, as people that operate in this field, you look at these statistics and things like that, and then you can go out down the park and look at people living a normal life, and it doesn't matter a shit to them how many followers you've got or any of that. Like, are you going to pick up your dog poo or not? Because like, can you get out of the way? I'm in the park.
Yeah.
Like it's just like you have to be able to contextualize successes. In the poem If by Rudyard Kipling, it says, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and meet those two imposters both the same. So you have to be able to look at the things that you think are remarkable, like, 1,000 million subscribers, but understand that in the wider context, it might not mean anything, and, don't get big headed and float off. So Phil's like missed that, and he is Mr. 200,000. I've got the button, fucking big ego, isn't he?
Just thinking of that Alan Partridge quote now. he butchers it and he goes, if you do
X, Y, Z,
X,
then
Y, Z, Bob's your uncle.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's exactly that. Phil has sort of like failed to see the limitations of what he's actually done with his life. And you get this a lot when he goes out. And if he's like complaining about, I didn't get this service at the restaurant, or, I encountered some problem at the supermarket because they moved something I normally buy. It's reality clashing with his expectation of it, and his expectation is warped by the idea that because he's done what he's done for so long, he deserves some form of respect. But again, in the outside world, like your person stacking shelves at the supermarket or like flipping burgers at Burger King doesn't give a fuck about him. They don't care. They're just doing their job and getting on with it. So they don't think, it's DarksydePhil, I better get in special treatment. I'll do him like, an extra big burger. I'll put more fries in there and give him like an extra large Coke, and I'll make sure
he's a VIP in his mind, and he's not getting the VIP treatment anywhere he goes.
Yeah, basically. That sort of like entitlement and the fact that he managed to somehow fluke his way into this position on YouTube has sort of warped his expectation of social interactions outside of YouTube. And I think, again, a lot of socialization there with his chat comes back to that and distorts that as well. And God, the amount of things that are wrong because he doesn't socialize.
I've got a bit of a question that I'm going to throw in as like a slight curveball here, which is that... So we were saying that Phil's got these unrealistic expectations, and we talked a little bit about it last week, and we'd probably ask you a little bit more about it in a minute. But how is it that you had to get a plaque and see it and say, wow, that's 10 years, that plaque, I'm going to do something different. It was like a marker, a moment. Does Phil require some sort of shaking out of his comfort zone? What would have to happen? At the moment, I think he's getting increasingly more stressed, and stress builds up to a sort of break point. Does Phil require a breakdown in order to change?
Yeah. I don't know what it would take. I've speculated in a previous video that it would take him losing everything. Like Cat would have to leave with the cat on the day that the house is foreclosed on, and he's kicked off YouTube. He would have to lose everything, because anything else, any one thing, he could find a reason to, write it off as not being my fault. If he gets kicked off YouTube, it's because detractors mass flagged and emailed him. If he loses the house, it's because he couldn't afford to keep up with repayments because detractors affected his ability to make a living. If Kat leaves, it's because she met somebody else and he lied to her, or convinced her that Phil was an asshole, or basically poisoned the well like Howard did with John. He will find an external reason for any one thing. So it has to be multiple things. It has to be a sequence of things happening very close proximity to hammer home that no, it's not this one thing, it's not an external thing, it's you. It's on you, this is on you, and then this is on you as well. He needs to lose a lot.
Another question that I would ask is, how does the narcissist look in the mirror, increasingly aging, as we all are? I'm losing my hair probably as quick as Phil is, but as we all are getting older, how does
you're wearing your headphones in your head, man.
Every time I pull off my hat, there's more hair come off with it. I've got hair. But how does the narcissist look in the mirror?
Don't put it back on for 150.
Say to himself, this is good, I'm top dog, I'm looking great, when actually the reality is more and more clear every day. How does a narcissist do that mental gymnastics?
You hammer your support harder, whatever it is that your coping method, whatever it is that you do to silence those insecurities at night, you do that harder.
Play more WWE champions.
Yeah, you play more champions, you drink more drink, because it's not working. The more stress that you go through, and anybody with a substance issue, anybody that's felt any sort of pang of addiction knows this, or anybody who's turned to a substance like alcohol or cannabis for a coping method knows this, that you get used to what it feels like, so the high is never as good. I think now that weed is not as good as it once was, but that's because back then a little weed got me a lot of high, whereas nowadays not so much, because I've been doing it for years. So it's the same thing. It's the same principle. You're getting used to it. Your body's adjusting to it. You're building tolerance for it. But those stresses aren't going away. Those stresses are getting worse. So you need more of it. Not only do you need more of it to chase the previous high, but you need more of it because you're getting more and more stressed. And what you are taking isn't blocking out the worries and anxieties as well as it did. So whatever your coping method is, you hammer that harder.
How far do you think Phil is away from an actual serious break? I'm going off the approved questions now, but how far do you think he is? How much? What would have to? We've had a dishwasher. People think he might have punched the wall with his hand. But it might seem trivial, right? I'll tell you what though. But I used to run a business, and it was only little things like this fucking hair color hasn't gone the right color, which is massive to the fucking client or whatever. So and so hasn't turned up to work, or usually it was me that didn't turn up to work, and it was my shop. But it was all these plates that you were spinning, and it can be something little like, oh, for fuck's sake, we haven't ordered the milk, and people can then feel like it's like the tipping of the straw on the camel's back. And I think Phil is approaching a camel's back straw moment. Do you think? What do you think it would take? Would it be kicked off YouTube or something smaller maybe?
That would be the big one, getting kicked off YouTube, yeah. So that's doubtless one of them, but I don't know. I think the longer this goes, we are in the probability now. We are in the area where it is probable that Phil will have a breakdown on stream. I think he will. I think that's the ultimate direction we're going in, but I don't know.
Very close with the Streamlabs thing, right? He was very close with all the legs shaking and
very bad. Yes, you could tell with the camera because he was sat at his desk, so you could tell with the chair was going at first, and then it got so bad that it was shaking the desk. The camera was shaking, so that was a very high stress moment for him there. So something serious like that would probably really, really impact him. Whether he'd be able to roll back the next day from it, I don't know, but I think he would. But again, you'd need more and more to sort of properly finish him off. You need him to lose the house.
When Phil's parents were, was sick and when his partner was sick, sorry to interrupt, but he didn't seem to have much sympathy. So usually stress and crying and like letting the floodgates open might coincide. Do you think it would have to be some sort of tragedy?
I have wondered if like what he would be like when one of his parents died, but I don't think he would. I think if one of his parents dies, he's going to be mad that the other is still alive because it means he's not going to get his inheritance.
It's only halfway to the house, yeah.
Yeah, basically, he's hoping for both of them to go very close to each other, if not at the same time. So, but again, I don't. That's
I'm laughing at that as tragic, but it's.
I know.
I was thinking
but it's like,
car crash, maybe boat crash.
Yeah, I was thinking that as well. Yeah, like they go on holiday and they're ski lift.
I think he sat there pondering. If you're watching Phil's parents, I wish you a long life. I wish you a long life, Phil's parents. Namaste. Jesus Christ.
Well, if it's any consolation, his dad appears to be very, very healthy. Like compared to how Phil like portrays his mum and his dad, they actually appear to be healthier. And again, Phil did that thing where he was like, "My parents are really ill, and I don't know if they're going to die, and this could be the last time I get to see them." And then, surprise, I've got married, and my mum gave us a couple of grand. It was the sort of person who would use the threat of his parents' illness to get money from his fans to go and get more money from his parents. This isn't a person who actually really cares. And again, like because of the narcissism thing, we see that Phil doesn't really show empathy that much. So it's genuinely questionable how much of an impact something like his parents' death would have on him. But
he did recently show some empathy for a voice actor who wasn't being paid enough. Did you see that? Sorry,
I did see that, yeah.
Because I was going to say, for me, it struck me that it was. He was concerned that she wasn't getting the Bayonetta thing. Yeah, he was concerned that she wasn't getting like her fair enough amount of money, and like he seemed to be able to empathise with that aspect that someone might want more money, but it was a strange departure for him to be bringing up someone else's troubles on his stream. So
I think he did that because it was trending on Twitter at the time when he checked.
Right. And it's this gamer person who,
Twitter, like.
if it's a big gamer story, he's the big gamer who's going to be covering the.
Yeah, it's gamer news. So on today's pre-stream podcast, we've got some news to talk about. But it was trending on Twitter, and a lot of people were very, very supportive of her. They were on her side. So he saw that and thought, here's a bit of performative, like awareness. But, I always think that the moments where he says, "Oh no, I am like totally, for gay rights and things like that." It's performative. It's performative, like awareness.
He knows the right answer for this one.
Yeah, basically, yeah. He's been in too much trouble, too long, too many times, to not like be aware that you need to keep a lid on your real feelings here. You need to be aware of how people are. Sort of go with that. Sort of a bit of you sort of clout chasing tweets as well. Like if I hop on this and I like make a proper stance about it the same way that everybody else is, I might get some of that attention and support back. Like putting me pride slide up and I'm a proud ally of you, I might get some like LGBTQ people in here.
There's a really weird contrast here, right? Which is that even if you do it organically, which is what we're doing here, you cultivate a certain audience, and the people in chat will come back and return because even if you're doing it without thinking, you're being yourself, and the people that resonate with it come back. With Phil, he does some things that are sort of racist, right wing. We talked about it earlier, and it might be that people are coming back because although you can't talk about it in chat, he's the guy that's used the N-word, and I think he's right to use the N-word or whatever. Yeah. So isn't it strange that when things like this come up, Phil's doing something that that he's actually trying to cultivate a more modern group in the chat by saying, no, you shouldn't say this, and this is what you should, and you should be pro this. But all these years, his actual behaviour, the tranny comments, this and that, it's actually cultivated a different audience. So of course he's going to get pushback in chat from when he flies the LGBT flag. They're going to
yeah. But again, because I think part of it is like you say, you've sort of like cultivated this audience that's. If you have spent most of your career saying, I am the king of hey, I will say like, I got drunk and I would say whatever. And I am, I will just sort of like speak my mind and not care who I offend. Then you're going to attract a certain group of people. And then when you start to turn on that and go, well, actually, guys, what I said was bad here.
Yeah.
And I really regret it. And you shouldn't say it either. You're going to get pushback from that because people see it as disingenuous. You're not like actually justifying the change in your beliefs. because people can see that you're actually just doing it because that's what's currently in on Twitter. That's what you know.
It's another example of Phil occupying this middle ground that he thinks is a safe space because he's not pissing off anyone, but actually he's pissing everyone off.
Basically, yeah. Because I mean, people on the right aren't going to trust him because he's like just as willing to sort of like go along with whatever they feel is like the next performative wokeness from like a company, or like say like, you know, a game development studio has said like pro trans rights or something, and feels like I agree with them, and you know there's going to be people who are going to disagree with that in his chat, and again your moderation or lack thereof is going to be able to filter that and change that, and that can really mess up a stream if that goes on for too long. And then you've got the people on the left who are going to be aware of, you don't really care, you are just doing this because you think it's going to get you brownie points and get you more attention. You don't have like the understanding or the depth of knowledge needed to like properly engage with this issue.
You didn't used to say that 10 minutes ago, but then you got in trouble, and now you're saying
2 weeks ago you were fine with saying it, but now because like some voice actors said it, or some like game companies tweeted something, or you know something's happened in the gaming sphere that's brought this topic into conversation, you're for it. I remember I think I've done it before, but it was definitely during the slur video where I said, like, if you were bisexual and you were struggling with that, and like something happened in the news about like a bisexual couple or something, some court case or some comment somebody had made, like a celebrity, and you were like, you wanted to sort of feel how people were reacting to that because you were unsure about whether to come out or not, and you know you remember Phil's chat. Do you think you could bring it up there? Do you think you could say, like, hey guys, how did you all feel about like the comments that person made, or like this the way this court ruling's been handed down? You couldn't sort of like have that conversation in his chat.
At least you'd be shut down just on basic principle that it wasn't about Phil instead of something personal about your personal problems. But
basically you'd be shut down for derailing.
I wrote down here about unrealistic expectations of the audience. Have you got any more on that, or can I ask you the next question?
No, I think we can move on. It's mostly because Phil, you know, narcissist in it. So
we covered a bit of that last week, didn't we? If you got anything,
yeah, we went into that.
Okay. I wanted to move on to Twitter, right? And I've got a bit of a curveball question that I didn't write down in the original one, but we sort of brought it up here, and someone in chat's mentioned it here about being banned. I've written Twitter is another place to communicate with Phil, because I don't think it is very communicative. And then it comes on to the beg tweets. But before we get on to begging, should we talk about getting banned? Because we talked about other people he bans people, but Phil has gone through the process of being banned from different platforms. We've mentioned recently just now that being banned from YouTube is something that would worry him and stuff like that. How does he feel, or how do you think Phil relates to the audience? Like, he doesn't feel it's the audience that are anyway involved in these bannings, does he? He feels like it's he's got a right to be on the platform, and the platform have got no right to shield him from his audience. He should be able to be upfront, and that these two things, him and his audience, should always be connected. And he's got some sort of grievance with anyone who should interrupt that, maybe.
Yeah, it's rules for thee and not for me, isn't it? It's basically, when he is banning you, you've done something to deserve it. He could justify a million different reasons for banning you, but ultimately, he thinks you deserve it.
Yeah.
But when he's being banned, he is the victim. He is the one who did not break. Even if
that's
he
a good
broke
point.
The rules,
he's never actually
find a way to not.
He's never actually said, "I deserve that ban." Whoops! Like, never done that, has he? Yeah.
No. Even when he'd say like, well, I used to do the racist jokes, but they were inspired by Howard Stern. And anyway, that's not why I got kicked off Blip.tv. It was because detractors mass emailed them and tried to get me kicked off. That's not accepting responsibility for your comment. Because if you were, you would say, I made those comments, I got kicked off because of those comments.
Exactly. That's why people sent the emails, is because of the things I said. And with Streamlabs recently, he said, I've been mass reported. But I don't know if he had any way of knowing if it was 1 report or 10 reports or no reports.
I don't know. I don't think you would you?
Yeah. So he's making assumptions about the detractor behaviour and community to fill in his mind he's creating a sort of fantasy self-talk.
Yeah, because he's not agreeing with the response that's given. When he was kicked from the Twitch partnership program for hateful slurs, Phil's definition of a hateful slur is probably just the one word, but Twitch will have a list. Twitch will have more than one
it's
word.
Context, isn't it? If you're going to be if the process is going to be that you appeal and then someone human watches it, then there's going to be context surrounding it, surely. So, recently I was streaming a game and I had to turn off the stream because some idiot in chat said a racial slur, and I turned off my stream immediately. And like, that's not going to get me banned. If anyone checked it, they'd know the context around it. I was horrified and I turned it off immediately. But with Phil, the context is obviously, he's finding it funny and he's making a joke about something that's obviously wrong. So it's straight.
Or it's because he's quoting a Booker T promo on Hulk Hogan, and that's why he said that word, and it's hilarious. And he can just justify it however he wants.
Yeah.
He didn't say any slurs because his definition of slur is one word and he's never said it. Whereas Twitch will have a different list of slurs, and they'll have multiple that Phil will have said while on Twitch in the partnership. Bro.
So also he doesn't understand.
And again, with Streamlabs and,
So he literally doesn't understand the modern world and where the lines are drawn.
No, basically, no. He's not kept up. He can't because he's not socialized the same way. Like, we're going back to Twitter, and is it really a way to socialize with him? You can't really socialize with him because he bans just as quickly there as he does in chat. But you can also limit the people who are able to reply in the first place. You could sort of like set it to only people who Phil follows, can reply to these conversations. So you can automatically restrict that. And if you can't follow him and you can't see him, you're not going to be able to talk with him. So again, there's very few people that will interact with Phil on Twitter. And it's a social network.
Yeah.
That's the thing that always blows my mind. He's antisocial on a social network. He restricts the ability of people to socialize with him on the platform where you're supposed to be doing that to grow your audience.
It's exactly the same as his chat, which you have to be a member for, subscribe for a certain amount of time before you can talk in chat. Today we've got new people in chat, hello, and they're able to chat immediately because, why would I want to prevent them from engaging with our content while they're new?
Yeah.
That's the exact moment I want to offer my hands to, extend to say welcome. So Phil's got like a border up before you get to do that. And Twitter recently had this thing where he claimed that because he retweeted somebody, they didn't have the right to reply to him because he hasn't said it he doesn't understand how the social media works, that they get notified and it counts basically as a tweet to them. He
was just quoting them. He wasn't actually trying to talk with them. He was just quoting them. So when they replied to, on the other side, when you are quote tweeted, somebody is talking about you. They're talking to you.
What they're
doing,
like
adding
to
what you've said.
And yet
it's not the same as a reply on
because you've got hold of them and said hello.
You'd sort of jumping on and go, what he said, I've got, this guy, what he said, I want to talk about it. Well, mate, I'm still carrying on. There's that element of, I intended to just comment on it. But when they replied, as they are well within their right to do,
the social bit,
that was an attack.
Yeah.
Because it was critical of me. It was disagreeing with me. It was insulting me. Even though mine, to anybody with an understanding of context can see, I am shitting on this person.
Absolutely.
What I've said is very condescending.
Yeah, that's the right word, condescending, yeah. And if someone didn't like my tone, it's their fault for not liking my tone. They got the wrong idea. Yeah. Is he even more condescending? So
it is inverted on here, but
it is, yeah, sorry.
That didn't happen, and if it did, it wasn't that bad, and if it was, it's not a big deal, and if it is, that's not my fault, and if it was, I didn't mean it, and if I did, you deserved it. It's the narcissist prayer. So it's exactly that there. If Phil was like, I didn't mean to do that, it wasn't a big deal, and if you all took it as a big deal, that's your fault. And even if you did, then that's not my fault, and you shouldn't have taken it that way, and you definitely shouldn't have come back at me because I didn't deserve that.
So if he were to be banned from somewhere like Twitter or anywhere else, he's going to be sitting at home seething because the people that run Twitter have fucked it up and he doesn't deserve this, and he'll end up streaming on LinkedIn or something like that.
Yeah, basically, yeah. I think if he was kicked off one of his main sites, he would find the replacement, but it will be to diminishing audiences constantly. There's only so many times you can get kicked off a video streaming site before you have no more video streaming sites to be part of. And fewer people are going to want to come to see Facebook gaming.
Surely YouTube is just the diamond in the crown, isn't it? You remove it and he has nothing. He hasn't got all that consistent ongoing viewer, income. Do you know what I mean? All that revenue from all the subcurrent of views.
Yeah. You could.
I've got my first Derek.
You got your Derek bots.
I have to moderate that.
Force of habit, I went to moderate it.
I don't know. I think I've hidden them. I just hide them. I'll look at them later, though. I'll look at them later. I'll have a little look at them later, but I'll just hide them for now.
It's a sign you've made it, mate. Getting the Twitter.
I don't really. If I'm honest, I don't really know about how to. I shouldn't say this out loud, should I? Because it's just encouraging it. But I don't really know how to moderate, so I don't really care. Like, it's just like no one's going to click on that, are they? So, it's not the best adult dating site anyway. I know where the best adult. Yeah.
Wait, are all the hot milfs in your local area?
It turns out that I've got a message. I only clicked on it once, and now I work for the Chinese government in my spare time, hacking other people's phones. Otherwise, they'll reveal all my personal information. Anyway, look. Moving on to things like that, tweeting and the beg tweets. Let's get on to the beg tweets because Phil uses Twitter. This is like see how I've like linked. See how I've done this interactive stream and I've linked these things together. He uses Twitter to beg, like ostensibly just to send out a text that says, "Hi, I'm having a bad day on my stream. If you're reading this, you're not watching my stream. Why don't you come here and give me money, you fuckhead?" And that's what he does. So that seems a really like perverse and bizarre way to conduct your behaviour in public. What do you think about that?
What I was thinking about this before because it has driven me mad, and I think the only way I could put this is he thinks all of these different audiences are different audiences, and there's no overlap between them. If you're following him on Twitter, you're probably not watching him on YouTube. You know, you're a Twitter follower, you're not a YouTube follower. If you're getting your information about Phil from like the shorts, you're probably not watching like the daily wrap or checking his Twitter to see his schedule being posted there. I think he genuinely thinks that like on the Venn diagram, they're distinct circles. There's no like overlap between them. And I think that's wrong. To bring it to like a gaming example, it's like when Capcom announced Street Fighter Cross Tekken, and they assumed when they came to calculate their sales goals that Tekken players and Street Fighter players would be two very different groups, without considering that as fighting games, there's going to be a lot of overlap. Mm-hmm. So the sales were below their expectations because they didn't think, hang on a minute, people who play Street Fighter might also play Tekken.
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's the way he's sort of viewing it. If you're watching him here, you don't need to bother about Twitter. But if he has something to say, he'll tweet it, and then later on, when he's doing his pre-stream podcast, he'll be like, on Twitter, I said this, so now I'm going to talk to you all about it.
But he also does this like literal beg. Like it's like things aren't going well. I need some support. I'll tweet it, and then people will come and drop a 50. Like it's like a beg mechanism. Like if sometimes I think about the virtual world that we're operating in. I try and bring it to a realistic image, and it would be quite like you're walking the street and someone comes up to you and says, "Mate, can I borrow a tenner?" Or I need some money for the bus. Do you know what I mean? Like Twitter's a social, it's Twitter. I imagine what it looks like in the Twitter feed. I'm scrolling through. There's a funny meme. Someone said this, so I might reply to that. And then I need some money. I'm doing a stream and it's not going well. Like it's like literally just begging, isn't it? So,
it stuns me into silence sometimes because I just cannot comprehend that you would have that expectation of your audience where. You'd have members of them that you thought, right, well, I'll go bother them. I'll go let them know I'm streaming as well. They always give me money. I'll go and let them know.
And it's clearly for the money. It's not like, can you join the stream? We need some support to joy us along so that someone answer a question, or like it's not like, oh, someone said something like Snippy's in my chat. Like if someone said something medical and I might say, oh, I'll try and get Snippy's. I might tweet Snippy's because she'll know about that. It's not that. It's, I want your money. Where are you? Like, it's incredibly rude.
It sort of goes to what we're going to come on to in a bit about like what it would be like to watch DSP's chat for a DSP stream for the first time. Imagine you're a fan of DSP and you follow him on Twitter because you're a fan of his and you want to see what he's up to, see what he posts, and you might have fun on Twitter. And then all you can see is like you're busy, you're at work, you're with your family or whatever, but you sat on the bog, you're browsing Twitter, but you're having a break from something, you're doing something else in advance, and you see just. Support has been slow. It would be great if you could come. Why would you want to if you're being pressured into doing it? If you had no plans to watch him, but he's saying, no, I need your money. Come and watch me.
in fact,
In fact, you don't even need to
psychologically,
stick around. Just come and give me money.
yeah, psychologically, it must read as like this is going back. Like it's like the opposite of an advert. Like an advert would say, "This is going really well. You're missing out. You should be here."
Yeah.
Like not, "This is going really badly. Like I need
Come
you
and
to
help."
do." Yeah, come and help. That's like the opposite. And like you say, it's like directly saying, "I want your money." Like it's like rude to the point of direct. Like it put me off. Like
All up and down the country, people like DarksydePhil are streaming to lower audience for less money. You could help. $5 a day. Please buy Cat from DoorDash. She's crying downstairs.
this Wednesday, we're not giving to
like
UNICEF.
that.
Yeah, we're giving to Phil. Yeah, it's actually become his own. You're right. It belies as well.
He should just register as a tax. He'll get like better as a charity. You get like tax breaks from the government.
But it like because he's like he's doing this. He's playing the game and then things are going on and he quickly tweets it out and he knows he's supposed to be on stream, so he's kind of doing it quickly. This must be quite close to his subconscious, just pure drive. There's no real clever filter going on. He's just sort of saying the facts. Things are slow. I want your money. And the fact that you were able to analogize it to a charity campaign in his head, does he feel in some way that he is this deserving, like you say about this victim thing? And I always hear you say it, but I always think of him as a more villainous, sinister character who knows what he's doing. But this might belie an actual truth that he just sees himself as a pity case who deserves it. So don't give to fucking UNICEF, give to like the poor streamer who, like you say, like
It's hard to live on 100 grand a year. Times are tough. Cost of living crisis.
fuck yeah. Like, yeah, the other thing I always forget is that he is actually getting loads of money, isn't he?
Yeah, because that's the thing. It works. Maddeningly, it works. He will tweet and somebody will come and give him money. So he's not going to not tweet when it works. It's like making such a big deal of begging and making that such like a focus of your stream. He does it because it gets him money.
And so he's the equivalent of like somebody in the street who comes up to you and like, "Oh, I'm really like having problems," and get me like, being a nice person, I give them some money and then they put that in their pocket with the other 50 quid and then they go to the next person and then when they get home they sit down to their lovely dinner and all their stuff that they've got from like professionally begging sort of thing.
Yeah, it's that's except we can see it here. He's on stream doing it. Not like you give him the money in the street and then you go on your way. And you don't know what happens to them after that. You don't know where they go and where they spend the rest of the day. But you can see it here.
Yeah.
It'll be like, guys, got a day off, got a lot of bills to pay. I'm really worried. And then he'll have his day off. And then the day after that, he'll be like, let me tell you about all the restaurants I went to, all the food that I bought with your money.
Yeah.
It works. Someone somewhere is coming to give him money every time.
It does, doesn't it? And there's one born every minute, isn't there? Like for Phil, if you're running a grift and you're repeatedly running the call centers, the Nigerian prince scam, you've just got to keep reading that script again, haven't you? You've just got to keep doing it. And if it's working, it's working. Yeah. Do you think there will be a period of diminishing returns where it stops working, or do you think it will indefinitely work for him?
It depends on the whales. This is the thing. It depends on forces beyond his control. Because all you need is one of his like really big supporters to have an accident or to fall ill or to lose their job. And then all of a sudden he's lost 30% of his income. So he's actually like he earns a lot of money, but he's in a really precarious position. Because just one or two of those is going to decimate his income.
That's what happens stream by stream, isn't it? That's why you must do the whale calls because, like, like you say, it's so fragile that somebody's not here. It's not going well today. Yeah.
You can see, he'll have a slow start to the stream and he'll end up spending 2 hours at $9, and then the last 20 minutes or so, somebody will come in with $75 and he'll be happy. Stream's done well now, that sort of thing. He's relying on the one or two people who are going to give him the most rather than a lot of people giving him a little. Because again, we go back to the whole, he's frittered them away. He's like had that filter of being obnoxious to the point where they've wanted to go elsewhere. So someone like Mekakuma's saying, you guys wanted me to stream this game, why aren't you tipping? It's exactly that. For 4 years, people said play something other than Street Fighter, and then he finally did. And he was like, you've been asking me for this for years, where's the support? Because for those 4 years, you've been telling those people to go elsewhere, and now they have. But if you'd have done it then, you'd have had a lot of people very happy to see you playing a game that wasn't Street Fighter 2, and they would have supported you more. You'd have got a lot more out of that wider group of smaller donators than you would have done from the 2 or 3 whales.
I think
but now it's dependent on them.
We're feeling like we're going to come onto like content and audience in a more general sense in a minute. It feels like we're almost there. There's one thing I wanted to ask specifically about this begging thing as well, though. That in the past, I've written here, streamers like DarksydePhil created text-to-speech donations on Twitch, and it became a social norm. You know, people on Twitch tip in the speech going. A lot of streamers then put up these goals. Like Phil didn't get those ideas himself. It was actually okay to have a tip goal, a sub goal. Some people still do it. Usually it's more for a direct thing. I want to buy a computer, or I need a new hat, or like new hat. But you know, sometimes people do that.
I need a new appliance, or I've got a new build. Yeah, there'll be something. Yeah.
But Phil has taken it, and it's become a staple, and not like the rest of the world has moved on from that. That's how they used to do it, and now the average streamer doesn't have those things as increasingly. You know, there's different things that are being done, maybe. But Phil has, like, you know, he's put this in stone. Like, he's almost like chiseled it onto his stream, hasn't he? Like, that this is the goals and this is the money thing, like he's mobilized his audience for financial gain, and that's what he's cultivated here. He's like created, like other streams might be trying to create like we talked about culture and audience earlier, didn't we, about interactive and chat, and like Phil's created this like mechanic. It's like a game mechanic, isn't it? It's like, you know, the structure of how things work. I don't think I've got a question there.
This results in a process.
Yeah, I don't know if I've got a question there, or if you've got a comment.
Yeah, it's about like how he's adapted to things changing in terms of how content is monetized, because people don't necessarily make it such a big deal now. Not everybody does. Most people are like happy for anything, especially in detractor communities. When you see detractors restreaming, they're like, Piece of Peace has it set to a charity. You know, you don't donate to Piece of Peace. You donate into a charity, a cat charity. So, you know, and like people like King Jad and Meerkat and Raven's Dolphin, they won't have like sub goals or tip goals or anything. They'll just be thankful for anything they get.
Yeah.
They won't be like, right, guys, 50 quid and I'll do this. They're just like, wow, thanks for giving us 2 quid. I really appreciate it. You know, so the sort of way that it's done and how acceptable it's seen to make a deal of it. Because at first, when it was becoming a thing, people were just like trying to, because they're trying to work out like the limits of this new format. You see this in everything, every sort of new media development. You get people who push it to see how far you can go with like the technology that's available to you at the time, and then norms start to establish and things sort of pull back a bit. And
I think as well, in that early stage, it was like young people were watching young people using the computer to do the young people games, and like, you know, they set up their own, like there was no, I remember with DarksydePhil, there was no mechanism for like the text to speech, so he set it up, you put it in my PayPal, I'd have it on my screen. It was like, you know, he created an organic thing because people wanted to support, because they wanted to help him out, and like, you know, they it's more insidious when it's an older gentleman apparently doing something that appeals to younger people, and treating them like you know, a market of pay pigs, rather than a group of friends who are all coming together to achieve something together.
Yeah, for me, it goes back to the whole his expectation of his audience again, and then the sort of like the Nigerian prince thing again of, I only want to attract these sort of people because they're the only people who I can like successfully con out of money. Anybody else will not take my shit. They'll call me on it and they'll see what it is, and they'll go. So I might as well not bother with them. They were never going to tip me anyway, but these people who I might be able to trick into convincing, I might be able to convince them, I might be able to trick them into giving me money. They're the ones I want to attract more of. But again, you get the whole, you know, more eyes on Phil is potentially risky as well, because it's potentially more detractors and more.
So let's talk about content then, because I've got a couple of things to say before I ask you a question, which is that I know a little bit because I make content, so do you. Like the idea for me, the contract, unwritten contract between what I'm doing and the audience watching, is that I think I should do something that has some value, and then people might want to watch it. And then, like, if that goes well, then we get to a position where, on the way up, I really do. I'm sustained by tips, and like, I'm not monetized on this channel yet, so you can't do a super chat. But when we get there, I will be grateful for them. They'll help me get where we need to go, and where we need to go is to a point where we can maybe attract a sponsor. We do something like this regularly, and it's seen as a valuable piece of media to the point where someone wants to sponsor it. I can move the pressure away from anyone watching, can you please tip me, to a sponsor, and then we can start making more and more content. And that's like the contract between me and the audience is that we do something of value and that they are interested enough to watch. Whereas Phil has created this other contract, hasn't he? So my questions there coming on, I think Phil recently is trying to do more lazy content, doesn't even want to play the game, wants to react, doesn't want to sit down and write a script or decide do something. He's just like going to be there and people can give him money. So I've got a few questions. Maybe we want to start on that about meaningful content, because that's a phrase that Phil uses, meaningful content, isn't it? So what is meaningful content, and is Phil meaningful content? Is it fair to, because let's be fair, everyone gets entertained by something some way, don't they? So, even Coronation Street is meaningful content for somebody, but
do you mind? Northerner.
yeah.
Manchester. I've been to that set.
It's meaningful content for my mum, who watches it every fucking time it's on. But you know what I mean? Like, it's hard for me to say somebody else. It does, but we should have to watch that as well, though. But it's hard to say to somebody, "Oh, that's not good content you're watching. You're an idiot." But for Phil as a creator, it's easier to say you're not creating anything special. So why should you be, given this privilege? What do you think about meaningful content from Phil as a creator side?
Well, I think like there's two perspectives I have here, and one is like that as another creator. I edited rather than streaming, but still I create content too.
You're streaming now.
It's what I
hope you realise this is going out live.
You're doing it all. You're doing it all. You're doing all the hard work. I'm just sitting here waffling like everybody going on. These two are talking again. Great. So there's that sort of like approach that I have, and then there's also one as a consumer, because also obviously we watch stuff as well. We don't just stream or edit and then we're done. We watch stuff. We have our own channels that we're subscribed to, and we have our own tastes and things. So from ultimately meaningful, and what is meaningful to a person is relative. You're not going to find like any absolute, but there are a couple of common things that most people can agree on, and one of them is that like energy and effort is put into it. A bit of passion comes across. So if you genuinely care about what you're doing, if you genuinely like doing what you're doing, or you have an interest in it, it comes across. And if you put effort into it, it comes across. Like you can see through, I'm sure like your first stream, your first video, the content you first produced is very, very different to what you do now.
Thanks.
And it's the same with me. There's been some improvement, Scott. Well done.
Yeah.
Have a round of applause. But it's the same with me. Like my first videos compared to now are very, very different, and it's because I as a creator want to persistently show that I'm putting effort into this, and I'm doing it because I like it. I like doing it, and I like that people like it, and I appreciate that people want to see it. So I want to provide more. But you don't see that with Phil. You don't see any sort of attempt at effort. We all know that everything he has is done for him by other people. His layouts, his intros, his sound effects, he doesn't even have sound effects. He's not even bothered to set up a stream deck. So instead to play sounds, he has a box.
Little box.
One of them cheap little boxes, that people have joked about breaking. I would support efforts to do that.
I actually think that's like his joke, that it's so bad that it's funny. Or is it just that it was originally something that he did and now it's so bad it's funny? I don't know. But yeah, regardless, he's still not going to use the stream deck.
Knowing what we know of Phil, that is a laziness thing. It is easier for him to pick up that box than it is for him to go through the rigmarole of the one-time effort of setting up the stream deck. And
because that joke's only funny sort of once, but now it becomes just shit. So like the fact that it's funny because it's shit is only funny, but now it is just shit.
Yeah, like if I did it once in a video to take the piss, it would be a funny joke, and we'd all get it, we'd all laugh along, and then that'd be it. If I kept doing it, it would very, very quickly pass that point. And
at that point, you might as well just be downloading the soundboard thing on your computer and doing it properly because you're a professional.
Yeah, but it's like he doesn't want to put in the effort into his content. He doesn't want to learn anything that would enable him to put in effort. He doesn't want to learn how to edit. He doesn't, he would complain about people not being, he doesn't know how to edit it. So, you don't get a top 10 that he's done. And instead, when he's doing a top 10, and I swear this actually happened, he was playing clips of his old streams and people thought they were the actual streams. So they were like, "Oh, I don't need to give you money because I saw that this value, in this old footage." And he didn't even put across this is pre-recorded footage.
Yeah.
He didn't put his face over any part of it or make it clear that it was pre-recorded and he was just playing a clip, because he just has that lack of care or desire to want to learn. Like when I first started editing, there were a lot of things I didn't know what to do, and as I've gone on, I've come up to points where I thought, I really want to make this joke, or I really want to do this edit, or I really want to learn to do this thing. I need to learn how to do it. I need to learn how to find the skill to make this text do this thing, or make this cut here, or make this transition, or make this chroma key so that
we talked about this, didn't we? Because it's like I relate it to like having fun and enjoying life like a game, and when you're playing a game, you might want to learn the new moves or get the next sword or whatever. Like you want to just keep improving and keep getting better and having more fun with it. And certainly with editing, you might look at a little filter or a little slide or a wipe and say, "Oh, now I can do this with that. Hang on." And then now I've got a reason to play this trick in a video or whatever. And like you say, Phil has he has no enjoyment in anything in life that it doesn't spark him in a creative, get his juices going like food does. Food's the only thing for him that is that. But even then, he doesn't really want to cook it himself.
No, but it is genuinely one of the only things that you could ever see him speak with actual genuine passion for. Even though he's not got the full vocabulary to describe it, he doesn't quite understand how to properly describe flavor, or texture or taste. He's robust, it's flavorful, it's
robust
to it, but you could never say it tastes like it's a bit too much on the cumin, but there is a nice hint of garlic to it as well, so it's not. He couldn't go into proper, like a gourmand's vocabulary. And
in chat, they're saying WWE Champions is his true passion. I would love to see him do a WWE Champion stream. I'd love to see him just do that, right. And say, "Look, I fucking love this. Look, I'm top 10 in the world. I'm brilliant. Whale, let's go." I'd love that. Yeah. So
he's not even, apparently, according to TJ, he's not even in the top 10.
All right.
Because TJ was on that being said.
That's what 80 grand gets you.
Yeah.
But if I'd have known that I wasn't going to make the top 10, then I wouldn't have spent that 80 grand. Yeah.
But like many things that end up in my videos, I had a very stupid idea, and it involved going and getting footage for WWE Champion. So I went and had a look at a couple of people who played it, and I cannot believe he spent so much money and so much time in that game. It looks like the most god-awful, boring thing to play. I played Bejeweled. I used to come at me and my mates, back when MSN Messenger was a thing. We'd get home from work, and because we work nights, we'd get home at 6, half 6 in the morning. So we'd get onto MSN, and we'd play Bejeweled with each other through this a games function it had. And we'd do that. So I love Bejeweled. It's a great game. It's a fun little time waster, but I can't imagine playing Champion, and having all that extra stuff on it. Bejeweled is Bejeweled.
And also for a gamer, for a man who's professional gamer, to be into such a trite mobile game seems weird as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, can you imagine doing Farmville? Can you imagine him doing Candy Crush or Farmville? Or
it's very similar to Candy Crush, isn't it? It's Candy Crush with wrestlers.
Yeah, basically, yeah. But again, Candy Crush is just Bejeweled, basically. Yeah. It's the same match 3 sort of game. So it's a very basic thing. I would see him play, because one of the clips I found was he doesn't have the capacity to stream mobile games. He doesn't. So you could already picture in your mind that he would have his webcam, be holding his phone up to the webcam or something like that.
Doesn't have the capacity to use the button on the phone to send it to the computer screen just that it's done.
No, can't broadcast to. No, can't broadcast to any device. In fact, I could broadcast to my TV.
Think of all the richness in his life.
Everybody be
think of all the richness in his life that just goes by the wayside because he just doesn't think he's got the capability or the care to do it, or doesn't you put a little bit of effort in, you get quite a lot out. There's such a lot that just goes by the wayside with Phil. I think I wanted to talk about responsibility because we're talking about his approach to content creation, and you were talking about like your own desire to get better and stuff. Like, we are content creators, so it's hard to answer these questions without being massively like self-reflective or hypocritical sometimes. But what do you think is the responsibility of a content creator, and how do you think Phil views his own responsibilities?
See, Phil will justify his responsibilities as, it's my job to put out a stream that's entertaining. And like, broadly, you can agree with that. I always think as long as my videos are entertaining, I'm fine with that.
I mean, could you argue that Phil might say, I've got no responsibilities, I do what I do, and if people like it, they like it, and fuck them if they don't? Like,
yes, privately, Phil will probably feel that. As long as, because to him, ultimately, streams are his method of getting money. Streams are how he gets money. They're his job, basically. But like with your job, you don't care past your deadline. You don't care past clocking out.
My responsibility is to turn up on time, to read this fucking thing about what I'm doing this week, and to play this fucking game. Like,
yeah, basically, all the joy has been sucked out over the years from it. And I often think about, like, he must be one of those people who, you know, you hear about like doctors becoming like burned out, and so like by the end of their career they don't care because they've just been doing it for too long. Anybody in a job for that long like lost the passion for it. If you're working with people, if you're like a counselor or a psychologist or something like that, and you've been working with people for so long, eventually
he's not taking a break. He's not getting out and seeing the rest of the world and, you know, refreshing himself. He's just grinding it, isn't he? So,
well, he takes 52 breaks a year, but like one day a week is not a break.
Yeah.
Most people have a week, you know. And yeah, he has no holiday. There's no holiday period. The last holiday he had was Connecticut to get married. And even that wasn't, you know, he was getting married in his parents' hallway at that point. He didn't go out anywhere other than to eat. So it wasn't a real holiday. The last one before that is, I think he went on with Seattle with Liana, I think.
They stayed in a hotel, didn't they?
Yeah, like just down the road from them. So
no mental break from it, just...
No, not at all. And you need that. Even if it's like, you know, once you've switched off the stream and he's automatically on champion, so you could argue he's done thinking about the stream. It's still there in the back of your head. You need that switch off break. Everybody needs a week away every now and then.
I guess it's interesting because initially we charted a bit of his journey over the years last episode, but initially he wasn't like this with the money thing. And if you're constantly thinking about the pressure of money, like, and because we think he pours it into this WWE champions or other addictions, it's almost like he can't help himself, but he's worried about it, so he's making it your problem on stream now, and like it's taken over the whole life, hasn't it? In the same way as most of us have to pay the bills, Phil's turned it into everyone's problem. Like, his content is that his problems are yours.
Yeah, that's now like his expectation of his fans' obligation. They want, if they like the stream, they should support it. If they're turning up for this stream, they better show support somehow. That's the expectation that he has of his audience. Whereas you and I would have the expectation that you turn up and you watch it. Well, great.
Hope they turn up, full stop.
Yeah. You're not expecting more than that. You're not expecting that they're going to give you money. You're not expecting that they're going to give you 100
I've got the solid gold
likes.
hat ready for if anyone tips me. But other than that, I've got no expectations. No, I'm not. I've got 4 vests lined up that I'm going to change into, but I've got no expectations. I'll blow these bubbles if no expectations though. Yeah.
I got a cat. But yeah, he has that expectation because again, he views it transactionally. As I think there's a lot of this boils down to his narcissism again. He doesn't sort of like view it as a creator being lucky that people are coming to watch him. I'm like perpetually blown away by the fact that people wanted to watch my videos. So I am always happy that somebody is, like, regardless of who you are and how much you watch of it. The fact is you've taken time out of your day to watch what I've done. But Phil has the expectation of you turn up and you show that you want me to keep doing this. Otherwise, I'm going to do something else.
Oh, yeah. It's like a threat, isn't it? Like a veiled threat hanging over people. I won't be able to do this if you don't tip. So you like it, don't you?
Yeah.
You know, what are you doing here if you're not tipping then? Like, because, you know, it's your fault that I'm going to be not doing this. So it's like, I was going to say, it's like an abusive relationship. I'll leave you. I'm going to leave you.
You don't love me.
But they've got no intention of leaving because, like, the minute you say, go on then, like, there's the door. Like, they're not into it, yeah.
Well, let's talk about it further then, well, let's, this is the thing that the issue that I have. And then, you're being shown the door and you're like, well, I don't really want to go, but fuck, they've called my bluff, so I really mean it. No, really, I'm going to go. It was like the black cat in the in a fishing stream recently. I brought up on the stream recast. Basically goading him into banning him. He was goading Phil into banning him. He'd said something critical and he'd been called out, and he went, "Well, go on then, Phil. I dare you to ban me." And Phil was like, "One last warning. No. Seriously, ban me. Your last chance. If you apologise, I'll let you back in." No, I'm not going to apologise. Ban me. And he just kept pushing it because he doesn't want to. He doesn't want to risk losing a potential source of income. But he still wants to have that whole, I'm setting the rules and I'm punishing people who step out of line. And, because he needs that. He needs that power, that element of control over them, that feeling of superiority. But he's also aware that he's dependent on them. He has the expectation that they're going to give him money, so he knows that if he pisses off enough of them, he won't get enough money. So he's riding a line.
As a content creator, I do feel that I've got responsibility, and there's no, like, YouTube and Twitch and stuff have terms of service, but it's like I've got an internal terms of service where, like, even if sometimes I feel a bit tired, but I'm not to sort of put that across and make myself a big grump and say, "Oh, you fucking people." I'm to try and do my best on stream and to not just necessarily like be entertaining and wave flags and bells and whistles, but to be like my good self, if that makes sense. Do you know what I mean? Like, to show the best of myself because, like, I'm being live, and to also treat people with respect. And, like, people turn up in chat, like, this is a good example. People turn up in chat, they might say something, and, like, I don't know if they're being real or not, or if they're being true, and it might be about depression or something like that. I treat everyone as if they are being true and real, and give everyone the respect that I would, like. And if it turns out they're messing with me, then okay, they messed with me, but there's like a respect sort of thing. Whereas what we're describing is someone who's going through a process with their audience that none of that is, like, all that's just not even in the frame. Like, they're going through a completely different process with their audience.
Yeah, again, we've got like an unholy confluence of influences here, because you've got the fact that he's had such a tempestuous relationship with an audience that has over the years gradually whittled down into this sort of like grotesque remnant of what was once a community. And it's in part due to like his narcissism and his own personal psychological build. And then you've got how that interacts with and responds to external influences like racking up debt and being unable to pay it, and sudden shifts that aren't his fault, like YouTube ad revenue plummeting because of the adpocalypse, and then him like not being able to see his personal responsibility in like cutting all them videos and thus removing all those views and tanking his search results in the algorithm. There's all these things that sort of merge together into this like one final destination that we're at now, where he has the expectation that people turn up and support him rather than actually being like an all right content creator who understands that they're the content creator. It's on them to sort of not necessarily police their community, but like establish how things are and the sort of like the air and the feel and the vibe.
Be a good role model.
Yeah, basically, because people are coming to see you. You're the one who has like the social power in this parasocial relationship. You're the one in the position of authority compared to them.
You've mentioned you mentioned a buzzword there that I wanted to pick up on, and like maybe we should break apart like a bit more general now, like not just Phil. Before we finish on Phil, I'll ask one more question, then we're going to come on to parasocial. Okay. The one more question is that if you're watching this and you are Phil, right, what sort of advice would you give, and what's a good way to think differently about your audience and the people that are coming to your streams? Like,
well, for me, it would involve gratitude, because he's come to expect a certain level of not only support, but a certain lifestyle. He has like a certain way of living that he's accustomed to because he's been getting so much money for so long. And he doesn't sort of like really seem to fully acknowledge that. I mean, he's there like, I've been doing this because of you guys. I'm able to keep doing this because of you guys. But his behavior speaks differently. His behavior says, I expect to keep doing this because of you guys. I expect you guys to keep me going. And it's the opposite way. You've been allowed to keep doing it because you've had that supportive audience. Instead of taking them for granted, you should be like grateful for them. But he's not. He's incapable of showing that. He has like the performative facsimile of like appearing grateful, but once you sort of scratch away that surface, see that underneath there's like an air of entitlement that's almost toxic. He has that just. Look,
this has to come from some sort of life experience, though, doesn't it? I think then. So Phil had, like, for me, it would be, Phil, put down the stream for a day, like literally take one day out of your thing and go and feed sandwiches to the homeless, or work in a soup kitchen, or, you know, volunteer at a hospital or something like that, and see people from a wide range of society going through some shit, and then sort of place yourself in there and realize where you actually sit, and then you might reflect. Like, it's hard to say to someone you should be grateful because look at what you've got. Whereas like you know, if you go through some shit, then you realize, I guess.
Yeah, most of us, again, we get back to the sort of like the narcissism and the empathy thing again, where as a narcissist, this struck me recently because I think it was actually during the James Bulger thing. That
right, yeah, I have. Do you know what? I haven't watched all of that.
Not going to go into it, but basically, it sort of like really struck me that every time you see Phil acting that way, like as a narcissist, he's unwilling. He's not incapable of feeling empathy. He's unwilling to do it. So every time you see him like act a certain way about like laughing at a joke somebody made at somebody else's expense, or being like, oh wow, what the fuck, that's fucked up. When, you know, I mean, basically we're talking about monetizing people's death and suffering. So the idea that when you see him acting like that, he's choosing to sort of like display that callousness and that lack of empathy, and as a result of that, you get this distorted expectation of your audience where you expect that they will just like bow to your every demand. And it's being reinforced by the people that do. It's being reinforced by the people that give him money questioningly. And do you want to go out? She's fed up of it.
No worries. At this point, I'd remind everyone that if you click like, it really helps out the algorithm side. No, I fucking mean it. I tell you what, you chuffers had better click like. Yeah. Otherwise, I've got all your names in chat. I'm going to be going reverse engineering it and coming round to your house and banging on the door. Why didn't you click like on my video? I worked really hard on my video. You didn't even click like. I don't know why you didn't click like. I only want one like. You could open your phone now and click like. So yeah.
What you've got to do is promise to insert a chocolate bar into some part of your body.
Apparently so. Yeah.
Apparently how it's done.
We need proper incentives around here. I haven't even got emojis on Twitch. I've got, I've hit a target where you get those little symbols, and I've got a plan to enlist an artist to make some. But at the moment, it's been 2 years, no emojis. So, things move slowly around here. But what we're doing today is a massive improvement in my general content. So thanks, Steve. Thank you. Thank you, everyone in the audience. I'm being a bit grateful now. Our final sort of questions will be about psychosocial relationships in the modern world. And I wondered if you had any advice on either side of the, we are talking to people on YouTube. In the main, we're preaching to the choir here. I doubt there's many Derricks or, people who like DarksydePhil have watched this far into this. They might have got a bit cross, but, advice for people who maybe are giving him money, advice for people generally on the internet who are streaming, viewing, what do you think about this idea of a psychosocial relationship? Give me some pros and cons and what it is.
Well, the thing is, I feel it's slightly not necessarily inappropriate, but maybe inaccurate, because most of the time, you're defined by the social interactions you have, and those interactions are going to be in person. They're going to be face to face. But with like a streamer or with a content creator like that, there's still an element of social interaction. Because obviously people can sort of like leave comments, chat, and we can see them and reply and like directly address them. But again, you're still distanced from them. And when this stream ends, you and I could go back to be like completely different people, and they could be completely different people behind the keyboard. So I feel like it's distorted, and the way that you interact online is sort of parasocial, but again, parasocial doesn't seem appropriate either, because that's one-sided, and this isn't strictly one-sided, because there is a back and forth. Mm-hmm. But there's just two users talking to each other. It's almost like two people wearing masks talking to each other and like hiding their true identities.
Well, I would say, sorry, I've got to interject to say that anyone who watches enough of my content knows that I can't, like the mask slips. I suppose
Yeah.
this is the same for Phil, is that I personally feel it's better just to be my fucking self, because then I don't have to bother with the mask. But I do see what you mean. Like I said it earlier, I'm presenting I'm not coming on and saying, right, fucking today I'm streaming, fucking fed up of this. Like, you know, if I felt like that, I wouldn't stream for a bit. I'd, you know, try and build up some positive energy and then, you know, deliver a more cohesive and positive stream. So I agree with what you're saying. Yeah. Sorry.
Snips has raised a very good point. It's very close to pen pals.
Right,
yeah. Like
and Snips is one of our like Snips has been following my content for well over like 7 to 8 years. So we've had interactions where I've sent her a video through Patreon. You know, we talked in chat various ways. Now we're streaming. She's a relatively important part of this stream as both, like, I would call her a producer and
shit, she's the boss.
Well, she donates to the tippies, and that's what keeps me going, creating the content. And she was very positive about you, Steve. She was she was very positive about getting you on. So I trust her opinion. That's the way that I should say that. I trust her opinion. So we are discussing not only Phil's relationship but our relationships as well. So pen pals, you say, yeah.
It's a very good way of considering it, because obviously that would be you are picking what you send to somebody else. You are sort of like picking about what you write and how you write about it, because you want to put an image of yourself forward, and then obviously somebody else is going to read that. They're going to respond back to you, and then you're going to get that live. And there's going to be a delay, but you're going to feel like you're getting to learn something about someone. It's a bit back and forth.
Certainly with the social media and with what Phil's doing and what we're doing, we're here on, like, you can see me. I can't see you now, you fucker. You've gone. It's all right. It's fine. Yeah. You can see me. I'm here. Like, everyone that watches gets this like big dose of it. And for the streamer, certainly a smaller streamer, we get a very fulfilling dose of our audience as well. We can interact. And for Phil, there's one or two like Derek that he knows better. But it's this weird thing that you feel you'll get. I'm doing a bit of talking now. Hang on. I've heard somewhere or read or saw, a psychological thing that I used to do it as a hairdresser. When people were sat in the chair, I wouldn't say, "All right, hello, welcome to my hairdressing shop. I'm Scotty Hottie. I'll tell you about me." And I'll tell you what I did was I asked them lots of questions about them. Tell me about you. Where do you work? And after they'd spoken to me for 40 minutes about them, they would go away and say, "Well, we really got to know each other. He's a nice guy to chat to." Because they're talking about them and it's easy to talk with, yeah. So there's this idea that you feel you're getting to know someone or you're getting connected to someone if you are able to speak and be yourself and talk about you. But if they dominate and don't let you talk, as I'm not doing with you now, then you feel inhibited. So maybe you don't have that feeling. And on social media, you get a big dose of the streamer. You're very connected with them, but it's harder for the streamer because they're not getting that picture and that direct input. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, mate. I've been talking for like 2 hours. You can take 5 minutes. It's fine. But yeah, there is. Again, you're getting like the impression of an interaction with somebody, and for most people, most streamers and content creators can put across, or at least leave the room for that impression. It might be like I would reply to comments. So it's not necessarily streamed, but I put up a video, people have watched it, they've got comments about it, I could reply to them. So there's that sort of thing. And most people will let that impression remain. They'll let it stay there because it encourages people to come back. Once you start to feel somebody, oh, hey, they're streaming again, great. I always have a good time when I'm hanging out in their stream. I'll go and come back again. But with Phil, again, just through the confluence of the career he's had, the length of time he's been doing it, the expectation, the entitlement, the laziness, the narcissism, all that stuff, you have a scenario where it's all about him, and if you talk about anything other than him, you risk being banned. So it's hard to know about anyone other than Phil. If you wanted to talk about, yourself and how you... Hey, Derek, how are you doing today? Oh, you've had this for dinner. Oh, you're going out driving later. Oh,
Banned.
You've seen rainbows in a puddle or whatever.
You've already gone too far. You've already crossed the line here, yeah.
But that's not like a genuine thing. That's, again, it feels like paying lip service to it. It feels like a facsimile of it. It's an attempt at copying an actual social interaction. Phil only cares about you so much as he can get money from you. Or anything else, he doesn't. It's irrelevant to him. It's distracting from him. So that... It doesn't feel it's a weird sort of situation as in where the psychology that makes up his group, the social psychology that makes up his group as a collective, is distorted by his influence. Whereas in other groups, even if you have a central figure as like a group around a streamer, most of it is not dominated by them to that extent. Most of it allows room for other expression from other people in the community.
It's the cult thing again.
Like, yeah. In other groups, you'll have like, you know, fan art, or you'll have people having jokes or in-joke things. You know, he doesn't allow that because it's distracting from him, even if it was all about him.
The cat's going.
Look, you're going to hate this every Sunday. You hate me.
So yeah, you know, you could take 5 minutes and do the cat if you want. Like,
no, it's fine. She wants to get up. Come on. So yeah, Phil's sort of social circle around him is dominated by what purpose it serves him, whereas other communities sort of gather around like the topic of the community, as it were. You know, because if you're into, say, like paintballing or fishing or something like that, you find a community of paintballers and fishers, and you'll have like a couple of legends within a community, but most of it's going to be focused around fishing. Or
this is something quite remarkable to Phil, is that in his early days he was a Street Fighter 2 community person, even if they didn't want him. And in his later guys, whatever he is now, what seems incredible to me is, because I play Genshin Impact and I've played it for over 6 months now, like nearly 600 hours, and I'm starting to get to the point where my content will be viewed by the Genshin Impact community, because I'm starting to get to the point where I'm a member of it, because I'm sticking with it. Whereas for DarksydePhil, he'll play even games that have a wider community, he'll play them for 10 minutes. The cat, he'll play them for 10 minutes, or 3 streams or whatever it is, and then he'll move on. So he's never in one place in one time to be in part of a community. Like you say, it has to be he is the community thing or nothing, because there's nothing else that's any more constant than him.
Yeah, no, exactly. And anything other than, like, mind, it messes with the audio, you know. Anything other than him distracts from him. So even if he was playing a game like, say, like Bassmaster, sorry, not Bass.
Bassmaster.
Force a habit. I'm used to, but if there's like a Bassmaster community, and there'll be fans of that series.
Absolutely. Every game that anyone would stick with has a community,
But he's not going to be part of that. He's not going to be like trying to get other people who are also in this community on his Bassmaster streams. He's not going to be like trying to cross promote or anything like that. Like, I get some people coming to me saying, "Oh, I've seen you on TBS. That's why I've come to check you out." And it's like, great, cool. I'm happy about that. And, you know, some people will be seeing me and you'll be like, "Oh, I've seen them elsewhere." It's like, "Oh, Scott like sends questions to That Being Said's calling," or, you know, Steve's the one who was on that show the other week. There's like cross promotion,
cross pollination, and also it's because you're in the same, like, you've got things in common that you create similar sort of content, have things to talk about. Whereas with Phil, like, I think if there was a Bassmaster community and they said, "Hey, we've seen you playing, do you want to come in on this call show?" He'd say, "No, I don't do call shows. I'm not," you know, like, you'd have to, first of all, you didn't email me, right, with the correct professional procedure. So you're fucking stuffed there, mate. Like,
when I was free.
Reached out to me on Twitter, you fucking idiot. Like, what are you doing there? Like, you know, that would be his approach to it. So he wouldn't even, he definitely doesn't want that, does he? Which is strange, because like in the whole, it's this modern world of media production. If you're into a certain game, you have a bit of a passion, like you said. It doesn't have to be games, it can be anything. It can be fucking pottery, and you can get into it and you can meet people and grow and learn, and like most of those people will have gone through some of the teething issues that you've going through, and you know, it's just so beneficial on all ways round. Like, and Phil's not interested in that, really.
It's bizarre, because obviously as a species we're built to socialize, we're built to like form these bonds. They help us, like, COVID was so difficult because we couldn't go out, whereas I look at Phil and his routine and think you're not missing anything when you did lockdown. I mean, like, I'm quite antisocial, not in the personality disorder sort of way, but it takes a lot for me to like want to go out and socialize. But like to the point where like my family would joke that when lockdown started, I didn't notice for 3 months.
No, to be honest, I spent a year off going out before lockdown as well, and this counts as my social time, talking to you on the internet. So.
But like, even I'm like, I need to see friends. I need to get out. I need to go play. Everybody feels like they need to socialize, so it's amazing that he doesn't. And I feel like on some level he must know that it's because of things he's said and done in the past, but he can't accept it, so he still just projects it out into detractors, ruined everything, Howard ruined everything, all that stuff. And now he'll justify it by saying, I get all my social interaction from my wife. But anybody else would be able to tell you that's so unhealthy. You're supposed to have more than one friend, you know. So it's bizarre that he's got this community of potential communication, potential socialization, and instead he strips them all of personality and makes it all about him. He doesn't have like people who come to him with friendly advice, or they invite him out, or they ask him to join him in events or anything, or they sort of like try to do collabs or whatever. They have purposes for him. They serve functions for him. They'll make his channel art, or they'll make thumbnails, or they'll like edit special
little
videos.
Minions. They're just minions.
Yeah, these little minions. Yeah, they'll police his chat. They'll make sure nobody steps out of line. They'll all serve purposes for him, but none of them will actually be his friends.
I want to talk about what you just mentioned there, the word friend, in just a second. But I wanted to take this comment in chat saying DeadXo3 says, I'll admit I stopped streaming because I couldn't find a foothold within the detractor community. I was trying to be a source of Phil detox entertainment for that community. What I would say to you, DeadXo3, is like, you're here now and we're talking to you and it's all good. And I think what I just said about Genshin Impact took me 6 months of stable stuff before even people started watching any of my Genshin Impact content, and they like Genshin Impact. I think keep going if you're into it, or like if you haven't got the time, it's up to you. You're saying find a fully remote version of your job, but I would say don't. Maybe it's not that the detractor community have rejected you in any way. Maybe it's just they haven't been exposed to you through the algorithm and through this and that. If you keep up with it and you keep chatting and keep engaged and keep consistent, then it might happen. So I hope that there's some encouragement there for you, because you're hearing the chat and I heard what you said, and I'll check out your channel. So thumbs up.
Can I just throw something out there as well? Because
yeah, go for it. Yeah,
it could just be that you've not really found like your voice, as it were, that thing that clicks to you. Like when I wanted to make detractor content, I thought about doing This Is How You Don't plays, but This Is How You Don't play, I cannot like measure up to them. I couldn't measure up to someone like Joster or The Outsider or Evil AJ. They were like too good at it. And I thought, that's what people want. They're getting it from them. I am probably not going to be able to bring something to this. But then when the psychology thing started happening, I thought, I could do psychological breakdowns of Phil. And then I saw Baxter's Reclusive in Renton. And I can't do that either. That is just so well researched and properly it's an forensic analysis of Phil and narcissism. He's brilliant. And I thought, that's not what I can do. But what I can do is watch what Phil's doing and sort of highlight and point certain things. Like, this is a symptom of narcissism. This is a symptom of avoidance. This is a worrying red flag. And that's how I ended up doing what I've done and growing the audience that I have.
I'd agree with you as well.
Just be that, you've just not found it's not clicked yet, as it were.
Yeah, and YouTube, like we were talking about earlier, having the joy of wanting to make another video and try a different thing. So certainly it could be like an experimentation base until you find that niche and voice, and something starts to take off and get a few views, and you go, oh, they like that, and I quite like doing this kind of edit, and so keep doing different things and experimenting, and you will find that voice. Yeah, I think I agree with you there. Yeah. That goes back to the responsibility of the content creator, doesn't it? To have that joie de vivre of wanting to create content. So I think
you, DeadXo, making that choice and focusing on your career. That's also good. That's also completely valid. Most people would understand that. Hey, they're making that choice.
Yeah, I'm trying to do this as a career, so I don't have a proper job. But I think, have we covered? Have I stifled anything? Is there something you?
Yeah, we covered quite a lot of what we did, but. Yeah, we did all the entertainment value of the content, the responsibility of the creator. There was just a brief bit about coming into Phil's chat as a new, discovering Phil. Yeah. When we went over,
we did miss that, didn't we? Yeah. What's it like for people the rest of the world, people who've never heard of Phil? We could finish on that if you want to cover that.
Yeah.
So there are people in the world who've never heard of Phil, and there are now several online documentary videos about Phil, and none of them are kind. So the questions I had for Steve are: how do people discover Phil, and what's a first impression of his stream like?
Well, it's obviously you're most likely to discover Phil through a fluke of the algorithm, or you are looking for something that he happens to be playing at that time. You might be, for some reason, have it in your head that you're like, you know what, I've not played Mother 3 for a while. I've not played Earthbound for a while. I wonder if anyone's playing it on YouTube. And you put in Earthbound, Mother 3, and it comes up that DarksydePhil's playing it. Oh, wow, someone is playing it. Okay, yeah, I'll give it a watch. A bit like on the Twitch thing, you can search for a game and you'll probably find someone streaming it.
I also find that on YouTube, because I upload videos and stream, if you're live, it will suggest that you're live to people, and people actually see. We had a chat with the chatter the other time where someone said, I was explaining this, and they said that's literally why they came to stream, is because they were looking through and I was live and others weren't. So, because he's always live consistently, he manages to hit that note.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, don't rub against that. You're gonna.
If you disappear, I'll know that it's been cat shut down. But
yeah. But then it's like you get onto one of like my absolute favorite thought experiments, which is what is it like to go into Phil's chat for the first time? And it is a case of like for your first day, you're saying nothing.
Yeah,
you just
because you
sit
can't.
there and watch.
Yeah.
And you have to watch this man not do brilliantly at video games, but you know what? You're not necessarily going to a streamer for top tier gameplay. Sometimes you just want to see someone fucking about, and it's
if you are into top tier gameplay, you've already got your favourite streamer and you've already got your favourite game, so you're not going to discover Phil through top tier gameplay.
No. You've got like if you're into like fighting games, you're probably going to be following like Max or Justin Wong or Sonic Fox. Or, you will have people that you'll be watching.
Do you know what? I'm quite disparaging of the fighting game thing because earlier on I said, you search on Twitch, no one's watching it. I actually just it's my generation. I grew up with arcade machines and then Street Fighter. I played so much Street Fighter, but I have to acknowledge that since I grew up, there's been Fortnite and Minecraft, and both of them absolutely dwarf anything that I would consider traditional gaming. So there are now generations that I don't understand that are content creation leaders. It's just the world, isn't it? So I see Street Fighter as a bit of a niche in itself. So sorry to everyone in the fighting game community.
Games with arcades as well, but you know what? I was playing Minecraft when it was in beta before I got here. I'm very bitter about that fact. but yeah. So you find him somehow. You stumble into him somehow. Either it's the algorithm recommending it to you, or you are happening to search for it again. And that's how he got a lot of his support and money and notoriety and viewers in the first place. Back in the day, he would be one of the first who had the ability to go out and get a game and get it like uploaded very, very quickly.
He does pride himself on playing the new games, and he sees it as a source of not income, but influx of new people every time, doesn't he?
Oh yeah, why not stop? It is income. It's like people are going to come. They're going to support these new games. Will save the stream. It's how he sees it. So yeah, we could go that step and say that's how he absolutely views it. But ultimately, you do end up stumbling into his stream, and you sat there with 24-hour sub mode on, and you're watching his chat, and you're watching him stream. You're watching him stumble his way through a video game. You're thinking, right? He's
going to get cross at some point. He'll get eggy. Yeah. I say getting eggy, stop getting eggy. But he will only, and that's not always appealing when you're watching someone. And DeadXO's right, gaming is evolving, ever evolving, and Phil has refused to adapt to the point where he's still playing the same exact game that he played all those years ago. So, you'll watch this guy getting eggy over a modern world that he doesn't really understand. Do go on.
Yeah, there's a huge chunk of it there, and you can see it in so many places in his life that he has not adapted. He's just struggled to keep up, and he's been forced into change a lot, like stuff like the capture card and like 3 or 4 years of slating Minecraft, and then all of a sudden he's doing it every weekend. He's forced into change by his audience or by like external forces. It was always the pre-stream podcast until Keemstar opened, then it was the Level 1 podcast. He needed a name for it, and that was always just a temporary name. But either way, you get to a point where he's done something that's caused someone in his chat to say a comment.
Yeah, I was going to say,
wrong about that.
As this unconditioned viewer, you get to some flashpoint.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you get to something. Snow Carl will ask a question, or somebody will say something, or somebody will be like, "Nah, Phil, you fucked up there. This is actually how you do it. Phil, you're wrong about this." Blah 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 blah. Something. Supermarket workers don't know what they're doing. Actually, Phil, I work in a supermarket. Here's how stock shelves. Here's how product is determined. Here's how blah blah blah. No, you're wrong. You don't know what you're doing. And then you see him having this interaction with his audience. And if you're not put off by that, you'll get to a point where he's like, "Okay, guys, just before we start up the next bit, just want to say tips are slow. $9, 2 hours. This is pretty bad. I've got bills coming up. I've got my day off tomorrow. I need to give my wife something to eat. You know, 1 meal a week I have with my wife. I'm going to have to send out a tweet. And then he'll stop the stream as well. He'll stop the stream.
And throughout all of this, you're mute, unable to respond to anything going on in chat, and your feelings are just brewing within you, I guess.
Yeah, just sat there watching, like powerless to sort of like say, mate, what the f*** are you doing? Stopping the stream to send out a tweet. And he's there reading it out as well. He's like, but has been slow.
Could really do with your help, yeah.
Bye.
Please stop.
Old school thing, you know. So he sat there doing that, and then you're like, can't be serious. It really can't be serious.
So I suppose at this point,
comes in.
at this point, right, you've got like, I would say, you know, going back to our groups earlier, you've got some people who, like, maybe at some point Phil says something a bit offensive and they think, oh, I agree, I don't like fucking Mexicans either. And like, you know, they join Phil's gang. Or you've got people who then take offense, probably, you know, it's in the traditional sense of the thing, they just start starting feeling, I get a bad vibe from this guy, I don't really like this chuffer. But it doesn't put everyone off, does it, from watching? Because some people become detractors, I suppose. So, and then there's also maybe a pity group who, you know, view this begging and this, like, you know, desperation for the first time viewing it, like you said, Nigerian prince scam, might chuck him a tenner because there's this, I've stumbled across this sad corner of the internet, and I'll give him a tenner and move on or something. You know, do you know what I mean? Like, so this initial phase, I think it's strange to say it, but Phil, by being himself, does still capture people's attention in a way, because the game is boring, the thing he's doing, but then he does this other thing, which is like what we're talking about. It's captured our attention for years and conversations and hours. So how do you think about that?
Well, I think a lot of it is dependent on the game, though, because a lot of the importance he places on the game means that you can't sort of discount that. When you are in phases where he says, like, you know, it's a slow month, it's quiet, there's not much on the horizon, there's not many new releases. So he ends up playing old games, you know, he'll play like Evil Within, he's been playing Mother 3 Earthbound.
Do you know what? I see what you're saying, right? I see what you're saying, but check this out, right? So Phil is interesting to watch. This is what I'm just boiling it down to. Phil is actually interesting to watch, even if you don't like him, but not when he's playing a game, when he's just being outrageously himself more than ever. Like a bit like Keemstar, people don't actually like Keemstar because he's a bit of a cock. But they'll watch him because he's outrageously Keemstar and he doesn't care that he's a bit of a cock. Like, you know, and actually I get this idea that if Phil were to just come clean and say, I play WWE champions and I think you're all fucking pay pigs and fucking this and that it actually Howard Stern it fully, like, not even Howard Stern fully, like, Howard Stern was actually a nice guy, but do you know what I mean? If he fully went down the real road, he might, it'd still be provocative. We're still talking about him. He's an interesting streamer to watch when he's not streaming like games and trying.
I think if he did that, a lot of people would have some form of respect for him. And I think this comes back to, you know, what I was sort of hinting at before when I was talking about actually putting effort into your content and people appreciating that because they could pick up on the fact that you've put effort into it. A lot of what Phil does comes across as disingenuous because it usually is.
You know, the children's entertainer thing. I'm not a children's entertainer, but I'm just going to play funny party game roles because, like, and we see it as disingenuous and call it a children's entertainer. Like, but it's just pure facade because he has to behave a certain way and he can't do. You know, I feel like there must be like like you said before in one of your videos, it's Phil, but he's filtered. And I feel that act of filtering must be like, right, well, what can I do now? And a lot of the accusation of scat humour, it's like the safest place to make a joke because you can't make jokes about race, you can't make jokes about, you know, gender. You can't. So he's got this filter going on. So he just kicks into like easy gear, which is children's entertainer.
Yeah. It's also, and I actually got quite a few people telling me this after I said that. He's probably just at that mental age.
Yeah,
probably just like not evolved there, and that's, you know, fair enough. I can't. That's actually a valid point, and I can't discount that. But my like point about the games is that, well, if he did come out and say, I play WWE champions and all that, people would have a bit of respect for him because he's genuine, because he's coming across as genuine in that moment.
Balls out. You just have to be. If you just put your balls on the table and say that's me, then, like, you know, love it or hate it. Some people don't like, but it's the fact that, like you say, we can see through the facade. And you're putting, so it doesn't matter what you are behind the facade, it's the fact you're putting up a facade.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think like we try to be as like honest and as genuine as we can in our content because we've got no reason to lie. Like when I tell somebody, if I'm recording a video and I'm like, oh yeah, by the way, I've got a similar experience, blah blah blah. No reason to assume that I'm going to lie.
I see it as a strength, to be honest, even when it's to my own detriment, because you can't catch me out. You can't say I was lying. So, you know, fucking that's
like
it. You know,
most people, really,
if I didn't want to get caught saying it, I probably wouldn't say it. So there you go. Like,
but like, again, because he puts up that facade so much, it makes it difficult to take anything he's doing at face value. When he does the fake crying, when he's talking about like T or his friend that he misses, you know, his friend that died, and he does the pause and the, you know, you can tell that he's working it. You can tell that he's trying to convey an image, and double when he's he did it recently during the Rob Gavagan react where he was like,
I'll tell you what I'm going to do.
I'm really angry about this. This pisses me off. And you can tell, like, this is a point where you have seen it and seen that this is where a normal response would be outrage. And so you decided full on up to 11, the outrage.
He does it with the people in chat as well, where they say, "Oh, you know, you shouldn't say that about people because it's socially wrong, and I'm going to call you out on it." And like you say, he's like, you know, playing the role, but actually secretly thinks that was quite funny. Like, yeah. I'm going to do a react because I haven't watched his thing of reacting to Rob Gavagan's videos, but I have watched the first 10 seconds and thought I can't keep my like with you. You know, I can't keep my mouth shut. I want to respond, so I might watch it tomorrow on stream and just react to it live. You know,
yes, do, because the reason I try to avoid it, one of the many reasons that I don't actually like, I'm terrified of streaming, but I don't like cover DSP that way because every stream I would find something to sort of like go off on one about. I'd find something to like pick at and go, right, let's talk about this for 20 minutes. You know, and I would constantly be finding them because you just see red flags all the time. But the Rob Gavagan one is very, because Rob Gavagan talks about macabre.
I'm aware of the content and his
so you can imagine
position on it was just like a sort of inhuman, childlike inhumanity. Like to it all.
But like, I don't want to spoil anything for you, but get ready to hear the words "wow," "oh my god," a lot.
The man, the myth, the legend.
After you've got past all of that, you're now able to the next day. You're now able to talk in his chat. Phil, what you said last night was, how dare you think about what I said last night? It doesn't matter anyway. I never said that. You're banned.
It's gone in the past, you're banned.
Like your experience of DSP as a first-time viewer. Oh. And again, I just think that part of it functions as a filter. Because if you look at stuff like when he does engage clown mode, when he was playing like really hot new releases, he milked Elden Ring for all it was worth. He had Super Monkey Ball was the one that sticks out to me because he got a lot of support for that, and he was clown mode all the way through it. So you can put it on. You know, you can put on that sort of like, he can encourage that sort of atmosphere, but he needs the game to do it because he can't do it by himself.
And I guess
he needs like the sensation of the game and the theme and the sort of tone and vibe of the game. And
there's a mechanic that he's missing is that he's not self-aware. So when something's well supported, he says it's the game that was well supported. So then if on another stream the game's not well supported, I can't understand why this game has changed because it hasn't changed. Why you? But actually, the only thing that in the experiment that can be variable is Phil himself and his personality. So he doesn't realize that the game, like Monkey Ball, brought out certain aspects of his personality that he played up. The audience liked it. So like he's not aware. He thinks Monkey Ball was popular, not the way he behaved during the Monkey Ball was what made the difference.
Basically, you do it with like multiverses in that. It's like, I really like playing the game, but you guys don't seem to be supporting it. So it's like, well, what's the reason there, Phil?
Yeah, it doesn't appear that he likes playing the game, does it? Because he fucking goes on and on about how you twat, I'm trying
to play it competitively. I'm trying to learn this character. It's like, nobody cares about that.
Yeah.
You know, people want to see you like fucking about and having a laugh and being ridiculous and actually being entertaining, because that's ultimately what they're there for, to be entertained. But as far as Phil's concerned, his perspective is you're there to support the stream. You're there to support him. So if you want to support fighting games, come out and watch fighting games. If you want to support racing games, come out when he's playing racing games.
I guess there's a great irony in this, which is that the rest of the world that he's not party to is actually going out and doing that. There's a fighting game community, there is a racing game community, and he's not involved with any of it. So why would anyone want to support him and his little island instead of being part of the wider thing?
Yeah. You can, if you're into Bassmaster, there's a whole Bassmaster community out there for you. Why would you stick with Phil?
And once you've started watching his videos, you'll probably get a few coming up in the YouTube algorithm. Oh, there's another Bassmaster video. Oh, this other streamer's quite nice to me, actually, and doesn't tell me I'm a dickhead. So...
Yeah. So I would imagine there's let's call it a hidden number of people that sort of flow through Phil's channel. They'll stick around and watch for like a day or so. And then they find a better community with the game, or they're put off by him. But either way, they sort of don't stick around long enough to make an impact or to give him money. They're just sort of like there, and then they go. And
this is what I was referring to earlier about recycling as well, is that, you know, some people might even start paying him some money but might not stick around. But as long as there's that inflow of, you know, it keeps the water level to a certain, you know, you've got a hole in the boat, but you're constantly topping it up. So
there would be like a level that's keeping him just within the means that he is accustomed to, but it is really the few that are already there and embedded that are really sustaining him. I think most of the people that would sort of like, what is it, sardines, dolphins, and whales in the mobile gaming parlance, which are like the people who play a little and won't.
I'm free to play. I'm not a sardine. I'm a fucking great big chonking trawler. I am. I just don't have any nets or anything. I just chug around the sea looking impressive with my free to play fucking account. It's
no
more
shame
impressive
with being a sardine, mate. Safety in numbers, man.
Fucking, I'm not a sardine. I'm free to play. I'm like stronger for being free to play. I'm more resilient because I wouldn't hand over my money. I'm like an old sea turtle.
Like a marlin.
Yeah, I was something like, you know, like I'm like a special kind of whale that, like, you know, I don't feed on plankton or anything. I don't feed on nothing. I don't need any. I tell you what I am. I'm one of those like jellyfish that live forever, but they're only tiny, like protozoa. Yeah, I'm fine. I'm all right being free to play. But yeah, I get what you're saying about. Phil's got whales.
They're going to like that community of like sardines would have been much healthier, but Phil has over time, for reasons that we've discussed over the last nearly 3 hours, has frittered away and sort of filtered out and chased away, and now you've only got the few.
It reminds me of
really like a mobile game in its last few.
It does remind me of a little quote that's not exactly pertinent, but when Eric Cantona said the reason that seagulls follow the trawler is because they think that sardines will be thrown into the sea. And I think Phil, I was only joking about being a trawler, but I think Phil does feel like the, you know, proverbial trawler scattering his sardines and people, you know, flocking to him like seagulls. You know, his sardines.
I would actually be like genuinely surprised if Phil did launch a flying kick at someone.
If only he was fit enough to launch.
It involves building momentum up first before you can leap and kick. For any American viewers, we're talking about an infamous footballing incident involving a player called Eric Cantona.
And apparently I'm a chufferfish, like a pufferfish, but a chufferfish. So that's fine. So have we? I think we've covered that, haven't we? We've covered Phil versus the fans.
Sort of at the point where you look at how he is in the modern world and how it's changed, and he's not really kept up. And a lot of it you could tie back to, it's sort of lingering on Street Fighter 2, but from the early days of content creation, he's always been I'm not one of those people. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do. Everybody's doing edited content. Everybody's dyeing their hair and doing over the top exaggerated reacts. No, I don't want to do that. That's more of an ignorance of how the website is evolving and how people's use of it is changing over time, because obviously the YouTube's getting bigger and bigger. More and more people are joining it. More and more people are putting out content. So his field of what he does is enlarging. More and more people are doing what he does, and they're doing it better, and they're doing it for a larger
market
audience.
Saturation with big corporations, and then what you put up. I'm just talking about, because I think about these things as a content creator, but like you're putting your content out there amongst all this other stuff, and you're not. It feels like saying, yeah, it's not fair. You should judge me on different criteria because my content's not as good as that stuff, but it shouldn't be. So judge me on a different. Whereas most of us say, okay, you know, there's the bar raised. Let's work harder. Like. Yeah.
Most of us sort of like see competition as sort of we can see the good in it because it does push us to
I mean, I'm not entirely happy.
Going.
I'm not entirely happy that YouTube became more corporate insofar as when people. I mean, it happens everywhere, doesn't it? On TikTok or anything, music. Like when something takes off on the underground, the big companies come in and sort of steamroller their way in, and we can make great videos too. And the little creators that you used to love maybe get pushed by the wayside sometimes for these bigger, more powerful companies. But ultimately, welcome to the world. And like, if you like those little creators, you keep watching them. Like that's just the way it is. Or they grow and develop into a, more capable creator, I guess. Like,
yeah. It's like ultimately welcome to capitalism.
Yeah, yeah.
We're in this system where there's competition for the things that you want, the resources that you want, the audience, and ultimately the money that you want. And people like PewDiePie and Markiplier are doing it better. Yeah. They're doing it to appeal to a wider audience. And if you want to be the sort of person who in 5 or 10 years is going like, well, I never sold out, I never did that, I could have done, but I'm not that sort of person, then fine.
It's incredible for Phil. Like I should have put this on the list. We're not going to have lots of time to talk about it now because we are coming on 3 hours. But it's incredible for Phil that he looks at other people. If you don't want to be PewDiePie, that's fine. Just well done, PewDiePie. If you do want to be PewDiePie, then you should say that I need to work really hard at making my content better because look at the standard they're coming to and they're getting the views. And if you want the audience the only thing that you can't do is talk to the people that are watching and say, you're wrong for watching that. You shouldn't be watching that over there, you fucking idiot. It's the same with music. Like, I don't think you should like Beyonce or whatever. You should like these like traditional jazz musicians or this hip hop artist that was the right one. And like this band that I know write the proper rock songs are not doing so well. But fucking Coldplay are on world tour, or thank God they're not. But like it's like being angry about society for enjoying things that society enjoys. And in actual fact, if that's your position, then you're the wrong person because everyone else likes what they like and are having a good time while you're embittered on your own little, bitter little island. So yeah, it's a very strange relationship. Maybe we should do an episode on Phil's relationship with the modern world because like it's moved so fast and there's so many, like we discussed today briefly about Minecraft and stuff. There are so many phases that he's left like leapfrogged over. Yeah. Did I cut you off there?
No, it's fine. I was just about to say that regardless of that, I will still never agree with people watching The Masked Singer. I do not understand what they get out of it. It is an awful show.
Do you know what I hate about it as well? Is that when they do the judging panel, they go, "Oh, do you know, like to gain clout? They could who's under there? Oh, it could be the fucking Queen of England under there. Oh, it could be, couldn't it?" And people go, "Oh, could it? Oh, I'll find out next week if it's someone really good. Oh, I'll tell you who's under there. It's fucking President Biden under there, isn't it?" And then like when it comes out, it's fucking so and so off Emmerdale, and you're like, "It never was anyone good."
Yeah.
What are they doing?
Oh, I can't wait. I'm going to find out who's under the 99 with a flake tonight.
It's come to the point where instead of tuning in for the actual celebrities, you tune in to be teased to see one celebrity unveiled at the end. Like, what's going on? I used to get to actually watch the actual singers. Now I don't know who's singing.
Genuinely, the first episode I saw of it, I was convinced it was a parody. Like Peter Kay did that like spoof,
because the costumes were so elaborate as well, aren't they? They're like pantomime to the max. Yeah.
I was genuinely like, I am in a Black Mirror episode. This cannot be like a real thing. Yeah. People are actually watching this, but yeah.
Who's behind the mask?
I hate them for doing it. Like, you feel free to watch it. It's fine.
Could you imagine in your own nightmare world then that you're watching an episode of The Mask and you just managed to catch it at the bit where they unveil them, and it turns out all this time singing My Way, it's been Phillip Burnell.
I would actually genuinely be impressed that he did a collaboration with someone else.
Yeah, true. I wonder what his outfit would be. Let's not go there. Look, we've done 3 hours, right? We've done 3 hours. It's the chicken sandwich. Yeah, someone's got to come and put their hand through. Let's not go there. We've done 3 hours. Thank you very much for being here in chat. If you have any further comments or ideas, put them in the comments and I will review them. But I can't promise to reply to them. I'll put a little I like that, thanks. And I'll say thank you to Steve. Steve's going to stay on so that I can talk to him after I've binned off you lot. But you can watch all Steve's channel's up here behind me, so you can watch all his lengthy, extensive videos. And you're obviously here watching this, so subscribe to this channel, you big chuffer. You be good, my little puckos.